Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the pond. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, I go. We don't get live in the shine, but then I'm not talking, baby, they get so. People go put in your phone. No can you wait your life. Good night, you wish alone. We better hit that. You'll be hit that, hit that. Better than running the boats. Yeah, I bring down true crime. I'm done with dark realities every time. This is yeah, I bring down true crime. I'm done with dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL true crime. We going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime. We going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL true crime, we going deep in the dark. Yeah, peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie, getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi.
Well, good Saturday afternoon. Very odd and weird time for me to pop up, but I had a few hours before I head out and start my evening plans. So I want to get in to do kind of a precursor for tomorrow. As we've been on this Nicholas Rossi, uh, I guess, what am I looking for? This adventure that we've been covering here, Nicholas Rossi, aka Nicholas Alaverdian, aka Arthur Knight. Such a strange case, and I really wanted to get back into this tonight. So tomorrow, Sunday's episode, you're not going to want to miss. That'll be live at 8 p.m. I'm going to have a former friend of Nicholas Rossi on the show and basically tell us about his time in Rhode Island and how he became to know Nicholas Rossi. And this is such a strange case and local to us here in the great state of Massachusetts, just over the line here in Providence. So in Rhode Island, in Providence, Rhode Island. And I wanted to discuss this a little bit more. So again, another precursor warm up to tomorrow's interview. I'll be very excited to have Brian here, and I want to thank him for coming over on LTL and hanging out and just giving us some background and perspective of what he thought. And we saw him in many of the interviews that we found through kind of sourcing all this material to do these shows on, and all this strange behavior. And Brian 100% confirms that is Nicholas Rossi. He's trying to play this alter ego that kind of looks like the Penguin in Batman 2 of Arthur Knight. Says that he has never been to the United States, never was born in the United States. He was born in Ireland and moved to Scotland, and all of this, all these charges against him in the U.S. are false. And it's very interesting case. But what we're going to get into today is this. I actually, in my research, found, and I love this channel, the Behavior panel, and I saw that they had an episode on Nicholas Rossi. So I played a little bit of it, watched it, thought it was a great interview, kind of skipped through it. Great episode. And I wanted to break it down here on my show. So I'm going to have the opportunity to watch the full episode today with all of you. and we'll do some commentary over it. And I'd love to see what you all have to think here in the chat. But before I do that, I did the necessary thing. I actually reached out to them on their channel via email, and I wrote them an email just to get kind of their blessing if I could use the episode. So I wrote them and said, hey, good evening. My name is Brian, and I'm the creator of and host of the LTL True Crime channel on YouTube. I've recently been talking about Nicholas Rossi, aka Arthur Knight, on my channel and came across your body language episode. I found it a truly fascinating episode with your expert opinions and insight. I was wondering if I could get your permission to play and discuss your episode during one of my broadcasts with my audience, as I think they would find it tremendous value in it. I would give you full credit, a link, which is linked down there in the comments section to the behavior panel, and promote your channel. I appreciate your time. And actually, Scott was really nice. He wrote me back and said, hey, Brian, of course you can use it. When people just grab it and upload it to their channel as is, and you do nothing to it, we won't allow it. But your channel is great, and we'll all watch when it goes up. Thank you again for checking in with us. And said Scott. So Scott, thank you so much. And it was really nice at the end of the email. I said, P.S. Here's a couple of channels I watch to help us with our subscribers and views. It might find them helpful if you do. And he put Think Media, which I do watch that channel. So thank you, Scott, and vidIQ. And those are kind of subscriber-based channels that help you boost your YouTube metrics and thumbnails and give you pointers on how to kind of get your channel moving along. So Scott, thank you so much for the information, and you're welcome to come on LTL True Crime if you would ever love to do that and break down a case that we do here. I would love to have you come on and break down some of Karen Reed's body language, as that's a case here that we follow very deeply here on the channel, and even maybe some of the prosecution body language and all the parties involved. So I think it would be really great for you to do that. Maybe I can encourage you to do that episode on your channel, or if you want to ever come on live here on LTL, I would love that. So let's get into the actual episode of Nicholas Rossi. I'm dying to get through this entire thing today. I'm really stoked to get through it, and I appreciate everybody being here. Yeah, I wanted to reach out to them. They're a very big YouTube channel. They have over 800,000 subscribers, and it was very nice to get their blessing. Usually on the huge channels, when they do this type of content, I will reach out to them and ask permission. So it was very nice that Scott gave me the blessing, but I am dying to get into this episode. I think it's going to be tremendous, and just to see what they have to say about this. Tom, thank you so much for the support. It says, please hit the thumbs up. I appreciate it. All right, let's do this. I am ready. I'm ready to go. I know you're all excited. Let's do this.
Who are you?
Hi, I'm Arthur Knight, and this is my wife, Miranda Knight.
Are you Nicholas Rossi?
No.
Are you
that is
Nicholas
completely
Alaverdian?
insane. Absolutely not.
Can't wait.
Are you Nicholas Brown?
Brown.
Today we're going to be talking about Nicholas Rossi, possibly. Greg, tell us about the videos we're going to watch.
Yeah, well, a Scottish judge has decided that he is Nicholas Alaverdian, who faked his death and who is wanted for sexual assault in Utah. So it looks like he is going to pack up all of his accoutrements and head back to the U.S. There's 3 videos in this. One is from Scotland. One is from...
I want to just let everybody know this episode was 5 months ago. Since then, Nicholas Rossi has been extradited back to the United States, is currently being held in a Utah jail. And surprisingly enough, I think his next hearing is on like March 4th or 5th. It's so weird because that is the exact dates that is in and around the Brian Walsh trial as well here in Massachusetts. So we'll listen through here on the behavior panel. Again, I'm so excited to get through this episode. I want to see what they have to say about this. And then tomorrow, like I said, Brian Coogan, former friend of Nicholas Rossi, will be here and give us a breakdown of what he thinks of all of this. So really good stuff.
His home state of Rhode Island, and one is from NBC.
Out on bail, awaiting his next extradition hearing.
Who are you?
Hi, I'm Arthur Knight, and this is my wife, Miranda Knight. And unfortunately, there are those who would claim differently.
Are you Nicholas Rossi?
No.
Are you
that is
Nicholas
completely
Alaverdian?
insane. Absolutely not.
Are you Nicholas Brown?
Yes.
When asked why he changed his name from Nicholas to Arthur, he replied because it was associated with bad childhood experiences in Northern Ireland. Miranda, who claims she married her husband in Bristol 2 years ago, says she was there when Police Scotland arrested her husband in hospital as he recovered from COVID. Arrivals to court for bail hearings were in a wheelchair. An oxygen mask remained on throughout this interview at their Glasgow home.
I nearly died. I nearly died, and we are terrified.
Oh my
How
God.
can I be a flight risk if I can't even stand?
The electric wheelchair is not a prop. There's no faking of this illness.
This is a case of mistaken
Now,
identity.
I'm curious to see if they break down his wife's body language, because that's the biggest question here. Do we think that she's in on this too? I think she is. I think she knows flat out what's going on. I just haven't figured out the benefit here, because from what I understand, she's the one that has the money. She's the one that has the money. So I'm just trying to figure out what the benefit for her is in all of this this big scheme. But I'll be curious to see what Scott and his team say about this.
You say you've never been to the United States?
Never in my life.
They claimed in court you were identified from tattoos.
That is not true. There is no evidence whatsoever.
So fascinating, right?
There are tattoos.
Now, keep in mind, I mean, this guy is a predator. He is a predator. He has broken many laws, many sexual assault allegations against him. I understand what you're saying as far as he's fascinating. It's a fascinating case to study. But keep that in mind. He is a criminal. This is an alleged criminal. But, you know, keep that in mind. Okay, let's keep playing through here.
And I've shown that to news reporter after news reporter.
In this interview with a US network, he did agree to roll up one sleeve.
It was up further, right? And have you had any tattoos removed?
Look at his, look at
The
her
man
eyes.
wanted in America to face a rape charge is known to have multiple tattoos.
Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, this is a ride. This guy's something else. But let's just start by saying the more times you do something and get away with it, the more comfortable you become in it. So if you've used 50 names, it's really easy for you to spit out those 50 names. That's the organism doing what made the organism successful.
Real quick before we get into this, I want to ask the crowd here today, the people in the chat, does my mic sound a little better? I lowered the volume on it because everybody says I talk too loud, but I took it down about 15%. And if it sounds a little better, let me know. Let me know there in the chat.
Successful, whatever you categorize successful. However, the more of this stuff that you put on yourself, the harder it is to read. All these accoutrements that make you harder to read by putting on a hat and glasses. And, you know, people do it for disguise in a joking manner on things like Columbo and those kinds of places. This guy's Mr. Potato Head. He's got more stuff going than you can even possibly imagine. The little Stevie Ray Vaughan hat that he comes in, then he's going to have a different hat, a new hat, a different pair of glasses. He's trying to hide something right off. You can't miss that. The other thing that really, really jumps off the plate at me is when a person is short of breath and talks like this, their breathing changes too, because their breathing is why they're talking like that. Not this guy. Immediately, the first thing you notice is he's breathing normally and talking in choppy movements.
Yeah.
And then it's just so much stuff here. What does happen to him is when he gets into a point where he is not thinking, it's just like the crying thing I tell you guys all the time. The first thing I learned in body language is if a person's crying and they're faking it, if you ramp up the pressure, that part of their brain turns off and the tears dry up. The same thing happens to him. That erratic breathing, supposedly erratic breathing that's causing him to talk that way, goes away when he gets into a bind. When he's asked about the tattoos, the choppy answers and slower breaths, then you can't miss him because he distances the question. There is no evidence for tattoos.
Yeah.
And I have shown it, and you hear that cadence shift in the way he's talking, and he starts eye blocking immediately.
Yeah.
This is just one of my favorite things we've touched ever in the beginning. Mark, what do you got on this one?
This is going to be
Yeah,
really
okay.
good.
So,
Mark, accent too, by the way, while we're talking about it.
oh, you know, the accent is really interesting. I'll go through a few of the accents that he's going through over this and where I think they come from. And and how they might be some kind of alibi for him at some point. First of all, let me start off with George Orwell, 1984. George Orwell said, how does a man assert their power over another? People often go, well, it's got to be fear or something like that. Orwell said it was suffering. And so if you could get somebody to suffer enough, you would have power over them. I think, and I'm going to put forward over the course of these videos, that this person uses suffering as the con. The more he can lay up suffering, the more power his con has, or at least that's what's going on in his mind. The more he can convince you that he's suffering, the more you might go, okay, well then you have the power, I have nothing. I'm going to stand down that you might be from a wholly different country and actually be a perpetrator that we're looking for. So, look, well, first of all, are you Nicholas Rossi? Eyes go up. I don't care whether they're going to the up to the left or up to the right, or even if they went down, or I don't really mind where they go. But it is such a deviation from what we've seen elsewhere that you kind of go, well, okay, what's that? What's going on there around your name? But then you just go, why do you need to look?
This guy, Nicholas Rossi, needed an episode like this. I mean, we needed to hear it from experts. I mean, I think we all can confirm what's going on, but we needed to hear an expert breakdown. And I'm so excited to get through this episode. I think it's going to be really, really good. I'm already enjoying it.
Anywhere for your name. Why anywhere? Like, if it's your name, you know what your name is. If it's not your name, you know it's not your name. There's too much of a pause there. Too much of a deviation from anything, really. So why does he need to think about it? Look, here's the suffering. Bad childhood experiences in Northern Ireland. I mean, yeah, sure, if you were a kid in Northern Ireland, you could have some really, really awful childhood experiences. And so if somebody says, hey, I've had some really bad childhood experiences in Northern Ireland, if you're British, if you're English, you're probably going to lay off a little bit because you don't want to, touch sensitive issues there. So the suffering has gone to a high point right from moment one. COVID, I nearly died. Okay, massive suffering. Number two there, I can't stand. So this is a person who doesn't even have legs. So the suffering is huge. He's presenting something of an aristocratic style to him as well. Somebody who maybe had money but doesn't anymore. You've got the slippers with the embroidery on them, 2 gold signet rings that he wears. They kind of suggest that he might be from a high status family. You've got the busts in the background, the statues in the background. You've got the Wedgwood there. You've got the big club chair that he might be a lord. You've even got the name, Arthur Knight. You'll know that knights and the Knights of the Round Table, and the most important one was called Arthur, King Arthur. That's a good name to choose if you want to be up at that high status. So at this point, he's pretty much playing that kind of Sir Bernard Chumley kind of role, defunct, soft aristocrat. We'll see him later on in his Zorro hat, very similar to John Lennon, Spaniard in the works there. So working class hero, strange kind of romantic working class hero. So he really is romanticizing himself here. When you romanticize yourself, it's often not a blend-in situation. I could talk for hours on that first one. Chase, what do you got on this?
Yeah, let me go in detail on the eye movement thing here. When you're being asked about your name and whether or not you're someone that you're not, there will be no accessing or eye movement. We move our eyes around all the time. And you can think of eye movement as an information retrieval process. So when something's not really available, we move our eyes to find that information in our brain. But when someone asks you a question that you know for certain, there is zero eye movement. And in honest people, you can try this out yourself by asking somebody what color their car is, what the street number of their house is. There's not going to be any movement. And these two pieces of information are exponentially less important than somebody's name. Secondly,
that'd be a good one.
The massive red flag here is when he's asked about the tattoos. He doesn't say anything about him not being the person, not having the tattoos at all. He defaults to there being no evidence that the tattoos even exist. And this is where the interviewer could have exposed him on the spot. But when it comes to interviewing people and needing to get raw information, sometimes it's best to build these up like ammo until later in the conversation, so that you can dig some more. So calling somebody out early, they'll build up a wall most of the time. So that's maybe what's going on here. Scott, what do you got?
I don't know how to approach this because it's so obvious. It's grotesque to me, and and I've been telling these guys before we got on here, I said, I think that there's 3% chance this might be some kind of an artistic bit this guy's doing, even though he's going to go to prison or whatever. I still can't wrap my head around somebody continuing to think somebody would believe this. So what I'm going to do is I'm not going to focus as much on body language because I think it's so blatantly obvious. I'm going to talk about what a con does and his approach from that. Greg and I have a course called the True Crime Workshop, and that focuses on liars, killers, and cons. And this goes down the classic lines of what a con does and how they approach their con. And that's what this guy's trying to do. Personally, I don't think he's pulling it off. But the first thing, so I'll give you 9 or 10 little tips to go by. So if you spot someone you think might be a con, these will give you a heads up as you're going through your experience with them. Charm and charisma. Quite often they'll use their charm and charisma. They'll be so nice that over the top almost that you won't be able to believe it when you first meet them. They'll just be so agreeable to everything, and it'll be wonderful, especially if there's a lot of if you're in a position where they can get something where there's a lot of money or there's a piece of property they want, something like that. So the first thing we'll want to watch out for is or just keep an eye open for is how charismatic someone is. If it starts feeling a little bit creepy, we also talk about that when it comes to psychopathy, and quite often the con is a psychopath. I don't think this guy is at all, but keep an eye out or keep your head open for that charisma that seems just a little bit over the top. Sometimes it's way over the top.
I always wonder, the people that are in law enforcement and they're experts in these type of like body language and eye movements and stuff. I wonder if they're always seriously psychoanalyzing people. Like when you meet someone for the first time, are they profiling them right away? I always wonder that. I'm sure I probably would if I was trained like that. You're kind of just figuring someone out, is this an honest person? Is it a bad person? Picking up kind of these weird traits off this person, or generally just come off as a really good person. So that's why I love all this stuff.
Keep an eye open for that, because that'll start, that'll give you the heads up to start collecting information about this person as you go along. Some of these other tips I'll give you.
One of those tape replays.
Out on bail, awaiting his next extradition hearing.
Who are you?
I am Arthur Knight, and this is my wife, Miranda Knight. And unfortunately, there are those who would claim differently.
Are you Nicholas Rossi?
No.
Are you
That is
Nicholas
completely
Alaverdian?
insane. Absolutely not.
Are you Nicholas Brown?
Yes.
When asked why he changed his name from Nicholas to Arthur, he replied because it was associated with bad childhood experiences in Northern Ireland. Miranda, who claims she married her husband in Bristol 2 years ago, says she was there when Police Scotland arrested her husband in hospital as he recovered from COVID. Arrivals to court for bail hearings were in a wheelchair. An oxygen mask remained on throughout this interview at their Glasgow home.
I nearly died. And we are terrified.
Oh my God.
How can I be a flight risk if I can't even stand?
The electric wheelchair is not a prop. There's no faking of this illness.
This is a case of mistaken identity.
You say you've never been to the United States?
Never in my life.
They claimed in court you were identified from tattoos.
That is not true. There is no evidence whatsoever that
maybe get some insight by Brian
tattoos,
tomorrow.
And I've shown that to news reporter after news reporter.
In this interview with a US network, he did agree to roll up one sleeve.
It was up further, right? And have you had any tattoos removed?
The man wanted in America to face a rape charge is known to have multiple tattoos. Nicholas Rossi, also known as Alaverdian, is believed to have used at least 16 different aliases.
16 aliases? No, typos.
These are very serious charges that this man faces. They claim this man faked his own death to evade those charges. Did you fake your own death?
Sharon, we're sitting having a conversation. I've never been dead to anyone.
After so many years, I know him inside out. I know my husband does not have tendencies as a rapist.
He is going to be needing a very large team on the pitch to try to say that I am a rapist, because not only are we terrified because this is a vicious lie, but we are also incredibly disgusted by the fact that we now have to live our lives in a secretive way because my wife can't even walk down the pavement to get a pint of milk. And
some people say you're saying it a secretive way, but you're now speaking to various media outlets, including us. Why? What is the purpose then of this interview?
The truth needs to be known.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
Pints of milk.
When somebody's being deeply deceptive, they'll be stressed out. This level of stress does a few things to our bodies, but one thing it does more than anything else is it lessens our ability to rationally process information. So what you're seeing here with the faking your own death question is his inability to realize that any rational person in the world would either simply say, no, maybe that was not me, or never. Instead, he hesitates a lot. And then he goes directly into rationalization instead of just a simple denial. This is a bad move. His wife here then does the same thing. She fails to make a denial about him faking his death and this whole accusation of being a rapist, and instead rationalizes the exact same way that he does. She says, I've known him for years. I know my husband does not have tendencies. And this is getting more ridiculous by the minute. And here's another reason I'm grateful for high resolution video. If you watch this again, you're going to see a signal that usually requires being close up. You can literally see his pupils dilate when he's delivering these lies. And we're not just seeing verbal deception here. Keep this in mind as you're watching these clips. He's lying from within a fake identity, while lying in a fake accent and lying with his mannerisms, and even having to maintain this English vernacular, like the pavement quote. And all these by themselves are largely increasing cognitive load, which makes him make these mistakes a lot. He's also shifted breathing into his chest, which we tend to do when we're stressed out. I'll let you guys tackle the rest of that stuff. Scott, what do you got?
All right. If I was interviewing this guy and I wanted to get it over with fairly quickly, I'd say, look, son, let's take that.
All the effects of COVID. He married and then went into all this COVID stuff. And this is the long-term effects he's seeing from COVID while he was in Scotland.
That mask off and get a look at them choppers, because he's got a gap in there. It's big enough you could have a child's party with a clown and a magician. That's how big it is. And you can see it, look at it through this mask as you're looking at that. And I'll put up a picture of him when he was younger. And you tell me if this isn't the same guy.
Yeah.
This is what I'm talking about. I cannot believe this guy's doing this. That's why I think it might be a bit. Greg, what do you got?
Keep the mask on.
Yeah, so let me just ask you this. I'm going to say word for word what he said. You tell me exactly what question he's answering. I'm Sharon, we are sitting here having a conversation. What question does that answer? Anything you want it to, because it makes no sense. So they're right. That's enough right there. When he's asked a hard question.
Scott, he's been confirmed through DNA. But he just keeps playing this act. And you saw in now the future hearings that they just had a couple of weeks ago, the judge is not buying it. We'll just like, all right, Arthur, all right, Nicholas, we're going to see you at the next hearing, essentially. They're not buying it. I mean, he's been confirmed, but he's playing this out that he is Arthur Knight. And I think they're going to get to the root of the problem really, really quick here.
Did you fake your own death? Just yes or no. Yes or no. I'm with you, Chase. The pupil dilation you can't miss. I agree with you. This is great high res and it pops up. He doesn't address the question when he's asked about these 16 different names. He goes into some tirade about typos. Well, look, if it's not me, I would have said it's not me. Forget the typos. Who cares how they got there? There's no declaration of innocence. only an excuse. And when he gets into that whole thing where he's talking about typos, he's fluid and smooth. His tirade is fluid and smooth. There's no choppy speaking like he's breathing poorly or any of that. There's so much stuff here. He's eye blocking. There's a vocal fry. Even the dog's meter goes off and the dog goes, "Roo." I love that part. It made me laugh out loud while listening to it.
I'm not sure.
But just walk through it. He also gets a vocal fry that he has not had up to now. We're not comparing him to other people. We're not talking about a vocal fry in other people. He didn't have it, and now he's got it. Watch the interviewer as she blinks in disbelief. There's a thing that people will write in comments often on our thing and say, blink, blink, blink. It's because we all know that's when the person's going, hold on a minute, what's going on there? The interviewer goes, blink, 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 just as she's listening to what he's saying. There's just so much stuff.
I'm telling you, I want to see them break down all the particulars in Karen Reed's case, all the parties in Karen Reed's case. I think it would be a fascinating study. So again, Scott, if you're watching this, and that's the gentleman up on the panel, he allowed me to do this, take this and go through this episode on the panel. So Scott, if you're seeing this, please break down the Karen Reed case. We would love to see some expertise on that. I think it'd be really fascinating. Okay, let's go.
And Scott, I can't believe you didn't mention this one because it's yours. If you look at him and pay attention to all this stuff from here on, I want you to pay attention to his breathing rate versus his choppy speech. And when those two are out of line, you know something's up. Then Scott, he does the best example of non-aligned illustrators I've ever seen. When he goes, the whole truth needs to be known. So he's out back there too. It's a beautiful one. Mark, what do you got?
So more of the con of the suffering, which is live our lives in a secretive way. Okay, the suffering here is they now have to live their lives undercover. I'm sure Scott will go more into this, but for me, the idea of the con is you can only con a greedy person, and you got to find out what they're greedy for, and you've got to lower your status. You got to take yourself down to give them more confidence. The confidence trick is about causing other people to be confident about the position they're in. Then they will take maneuvers that most other people who don't have that confidence will just go, well, that begs belief. I mean, it can't be like that. You can't be getting that amount of money for that. There's got to be something up. But the person is so confident in themselves, with that confidence been given by somebody else, by the con artist. They're so confident that they lose rationale. Let's work out later on how maybe this wife has lost all rationale around here. Maybe some con is being played on her at some point. Let's look at his accent. There's a great benefit to the type of the archetype or the cultural type that he's gone for here, Greg, which is the Oxford kind of buffoon. Right. It's the Boris Johnson.
So how would that make sense? If he's born, he says he was born in Ireland and spent the rest of his time, I guess, in Scotland. So how do you have this, like you said, this Oxford English accent? Where did that come from?
Bernard Chumley. It's Billy Bunter. We'll talk a little bit more about Billy Bunter later on from Greyfriars School. But what that archetype allows you to do is kind of fluster around and baboon around and kind of stuff and not really get anything out. That with the mask, it's a complete close down. I mean, there's no information is going to get through. And some people would go, oh, you know what? It's just a defunct lord, somebody of status who's lost all their power. Poor guy, leave him alone. And that's the confidence trick for me being played. So take a look at Boris. Boris, great example of somebody who would not quite know what they were doing, where they quite were. So that you go, oh, it's poor Boris. Poor Boris is a bit confused by the whole thing. Underneath that, there's a whole different set of workings going on. But so the accent he's going for, actually not bad for the archetype, not bad for the character, is the extreme of that Oxford buffooning kind of accent. Somebody who you might want to be your Oxford Don, somebody who is your professor at Oxford, bright guy, a bit odd now and again, bit eccentric is the idea behind that. Scott, what do you got on this one? No? Chase?
I went, mine was just really short.
I was last? Oh, okay.
Yeah. Unbelievable that I wasn't last.
Pick first next time. Yeah.
I told you why I'm always last, because it feels like I'm first because I'm the first one to talk. So he goes, oh, he's already gone.
Yep, that's pretty true.
One of those tape replays.
Nicholas Rossi, also known as Alaverdian, is believed to have used at least 16 different aliases.
16 aliases? No, typos.
These are very serious charges that this man faces. They claim this man faked his own death to evade those charges. Did you fake your own death?
Sharon, we're sitting having a conversation. I've never been dead to anyone.
After so many years, I know him inside out. I know my husband does not have tendencies as a rapist.
He is going to be needing a very large team on the pitch to try to say that I am a rapist, because not only are we terrified because this is a vicious lie, but we are also incredibly disgusted by the fact that we now have to live our lives in a secretive way because my wife can't even walk down the pavement to get a pint of milk.
Some people would say you're saying it a secretive way, but you're now speaking to various media outlets, including us. Why? What is the purpose then of this interview?
The truth needs to be known.
Will you show me your arm? Where they say the tattoo is?
Absolutely. What I will show you first is that. And
So this is very interesting. He has a full file on Nicholas Rossi. This Arthur Knight character has this full file on Nicholas Rossi. Why would he be so interested in Nicholas Rossi's file if he's not Nicholas Rossi?
So this private document, which is the Interpol Red Notice, you can see it has a man's arm fully tattooed. Okay. And I will show you that my arm is not tattooed. By the way. There's that arm.
Yeah, I know.
The funny thing about it is when we looked at the arm in a clearer video, you can actually see where the tattoo was removed because you could see all the little laser marks on his arms.
Hard with the jacket, but it was up further, right?
No. I will tell you very far.
He's bumbling around.
This is a tattoo. So, okay, this one. Okay.
His wife, she's like, oh shit. Oh shit.
Well, it's hard to see here, but I know you're wearing a jacket and a shirt, but obviously, isn't it farther up?
Right. I
think Arthur's trying to show you. Shall I show? When my husband's been in true comas, he doesn't have the flexibility to move around as much because he's obviously in a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair, so he can't actually get up, he can't weight bear. So what he's trying to show is that there's a photograph which actually shows that the person has a full sleeve. So it's a full sleeve, which obviously means
a full sleeve tattoo.
So
it's like whatever.
And nothing on the other arm? Okay. And have you had any tattoos removed? No.
All right. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, okay, here's another disguise. This guy's Mr. Potato Head hiding the potato. If he puts enough stuff on, you won't notice. And every time he comes up, we're going to see something just a little different. And he's a fashion plate for whatever he is. If you look at all the different things we'll see him going through here. When he starts to ask him, will you show me your arm? That's a yes or no, or roll up my shirt. Hey, I can't because. Look at her withdrawn lips, Jason. You're one of the guys who brings this up a lot, needing approval when your lips are withdrawn. Her lips are pulled back as she's watching the shenanigans. If you ever seen the movie The Jerk, and if you haven't, do yourself a favor. It's a stupid, funny movie, but it's a funny movie. And in there, Steve Martin is giving out prizes for something a guy wins. And there's a whole bunch of stuff like TVs and stereos. But he says, okay, you won. You can have anything between this ashtray and this thimble. And it's a little space about that big. That's what this guy's doing. He's folding this thing up. If you ask me, hey, is this you? These tattoos, I'd say, hold on a second. Just take my shirt off and show you I don't have any of those. And just say, look, that's not me. Or I would simply say, I don't have these. This is not me. But I wouldn't fold it down to where there's one little picture so I could limit my exposure so that I get in trouble later.
That's
so
a good movie.
If you look at that, this is just more of him managing the perception of where he's at. When he starts to open that sleeve, watch his wife purse her lips and eye lock to see what he's showing. That's telling. She must know there's something there that we haven't seen. He chaffs and redirects almost to the point of this being like an Andy Kaufman skit. I said, when we first started talking about this, Scott said, this is a bit. And I said, this is Andy Kaufman, but he's going to prison. I mean, this is a big deal. So anyway, then she goes to full blown disdain. You can't miss it. That mouth pulls back on the side and her blink rate and her breathing are up. This questioner, nice job, guy, because you keep going back at this guy, not giving him a break. I should have gotten this guy's name because he does a good job. He's out of Channel 10 in Rhode Island. And then the only time when that guy uses this choppiness is when he's trying to figure out a way to get out of it. He's not doing it here. But I'm not gonna keep going on this one. There's just so much stuff here. Just watch his breathing rate. Anytime that you see that breathing move, because he's got that bag inflated, you'll be able to see it moving. You can tell the difference. And the minute he starts talking and breathing, and then he starts talking and moving, his breathing comes back to normal. When she's talking, his extra face, Scott, is
quite possible.
Panting. What do you got, Scott?
All right. Yeah, I agree with you. There's just so much going on in there. Why add to it? Because I actually, still part of me thinks this is a bit. So I'll focus on manipulation or them being manipulative. A lot of people are under the impression they understand what a manipulative person is. Quite often you don't know when you're being manipulated or persuaded, as we like to say. So when you run into someone who is a con or who could possibly be a con, look for those things where they're starting to push you toward decisions. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, so who's he showed up as now? Now, Greg, he's got that flat cap on. He's now showed up as the suffering of the British working class. There he is, flat cap on, in front of an industrial scene. So, big bridge, industrial crane by there, kind of dockyards behind him, slightly romantic. He's even started to go for a slight northern accent. When he says that word, would you roll up your sleeves? Absolutely. He does northern vowels instead of doing absolutely Oxford vowels. So he's even started, I think, to change that. Now, why does he need these accents? He's got to cover somehow the R sound of the American accent. The big difference between the American accent and the British accent is British accent will tend to drop R's. We did that quite early on because certainly that happened in the US is keeping the R sound differentiated yourself during the Civil War from those that had money and those that didn't. So our British accent will tend to, in received pronunciation, tend to not do those rhotic R's, and so they're going to show through in his.
Hey, welcome in everybody. What we're watching here is a breakdown from the Behavior Panel, their YouTube channel, on Nicholas Rossi, aka Arthur Knight, Nicholas Alaverdian. Just to give you a little background, I did reach out to the Behavior Panel, and Scott was very nice to write me back and said that I was able to use this episode and kind of break it down on my channel. And they were very excited to see, what I had to do with it. But Also gave the invitation to Scott. If Scott ever wanted to come on LTL and break something down here, I would love to do that. But we'll continue through this, and I thought it would be a nice warm-up for tomorrow. We're going to have Brian Coogan on tomorrow as a former friend of Nicholas Rossi, and I think it's going to be really interesting. I got to talk with Brian on the phone the other day for about 15-20 minutes, and fascinating guy. I can't wait to have him on and hear his kind of breakdown of all of this too. All right, here we go. We'll keep playing through. Thanks for being here.
Accent. We'll hear some later on, showing through in that American accent. So Flat Cap of the working person. Again, initiating this idea of the suffering of the working class, and therefore you cannot call him out because there he is, working man, lungs are beat up, in front of the industrial cranes. You're asking him to roll up his sleeves in front of you, give a working man a rest for a moment and leave him alone, I think is the idea there. Chase, what do you got on this one?
I love that. And Greg, that was a huge red flag stood out to me this morning, seeing that lip retraction in the wife there. She's getting more nervous than him in this, and this could be being on camera, but we did see in the other videos that she was fine most of the time. But just if we take this video and go back to the reasonable person standard, how would a reasonable person dress and behave when needing to very clearly show that they had no tattoos of any kind? Would a reasonable person
just have a
turn off
t-shirt on
all the lights and wear a jacket?
No.
Would a reasonable person only show their arms for 2 seconds in the dark on camera?
Right.
Would a reasonable person offer to send photographs instead of just working hard to get the jacket off? This is the opposite of what a reasonable person would do, who's also innocent. Let's take a look at the next one.
Nice.
Mark, say Baker, Taker, and Laker, but use your best American accent. Let's hear
it. Baker, Taker. What was the other one?
Laker.
Yeah, instead of Baker, Taker, Laker.
You know what's funny, Mark, is the old South, where my family's from, they drop all their R's.
Yeah.
My mom would not say sugar; she says sugar.
Yeah,
Gregory, but that's the hardcore there, man. That's the old school.
We'll always have the
but it's a leftover from his point. Yeah, I think.
Yeah.
But that accent did. Well, I won't get into that, but it did. If you put traditional American music in this, you can see where all the accents, a lot of them came from. You can follow the music that goes to those as well. I won't get into that because that's not what we're talking about.
Oh, that's cool. That's actually very cool. To me, that's a behavior.
Yeah. For like Louisiana and all that, those people came from Quebec and those areas up there, and they had that French accent. That's why that music is that way down there, and the food is that way because that's where they would gather up. You got the people from Ireland and some Scottish that would ended up in the mountains in Tennessee and North Carolina, and that's why you have those. And they're fiddle too.
Right here, Baker, Taker, and Laker. That would be us. Baker, Taker, and Laker.
Tunes that are from the old days in Scotland or in Ireland that have been turned into other songs that you would know if you were into the old time country music stuff that have still gone down through the years, and a lot of people don't know where they came from, but the hardcores know exactly where they came from because they go right back to Ireland.
It is interesting, isn't it?
Anyway, there's tons of stuff like that.
Will you show me your arm?
Here we go.
Where they say the tattoo is?
Absolutely. What I will show you first.
Do me a real quick. We got about 88 people in here right now. If you could smash the like button, trying to get to 100 likes today on this video so we can get some more people in here and the algorithm push this thing out. Hope everybody's enjoying this so far. I know I am. This is very interesting.
So this private document, which is the Interpol Red Notice, you can see it has a man's arm fully tattooed. Okay.
Yeah, he said that too. Yeah, he did.
He
tattooed me when I was inside the hospital.
He's not tattooed. By the way, there's that arm.
Yeah, I know it's hard with the jacket, but it was up further, right?
Yeah. Why wouldn't you just take your jacket off? And you're okay. I'll show you. Let me give me a second. I'll get my jacket off and show you. I'll stand up, get my jacket off. Unbelievable.
This is a tattoo.
This is so crazy.
Well, it's hard to see here, but I know you're wearing a jacket and a shirt, but obviously, isn't it farther up?
I think Arthur's trying to show you. Shall I show?
Now he's dying. Oh.
Where my husband's been in 3 comas, he doesn't have the flexibility to move around as much because he's obviously in a wheelchair, an electric wheelchair, so he can't actually get up, he can't weight bear. So what he's trying to show is that there's a photograph which actually shows that the person has a full sleeve. So it's a full sleeve, which obviously means...
A full sleeve tattoo.
So
and nothing on the other arm?
Yeah, I'm not going to show my other arm.
Okay, and have you had any tattoos removed?
No.
No. I was going to say, you know, if you're trying to show that you're not Nicholas Alaverdian, for 5 seconds, can you pull the mask down or no?
Oh, this is great too. Every time he pulls the mask down, he goes like this. He goes. He crunches his face in.
I mean, I would say just a couple of seconds because obviously he needs it.
Okay. I just want to be clear. So you are not Nicholas Alaverdian. And what do you say to people who think you are Nicholas Alaverdian, a Rhode Islander who faked his own death to flee prosecution?
They're reading the bloody red dots.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They're reading the red dots.
So Arthur is saying they are reading the red tops, as in the newspapers, the red tops newspapers, tabloids.
Have you ever been to Rhode Island?
I've never been to the United States in all of my entire life.
Okay.
All right, Chase, what do you got?
I think you only need to see one thing in this video, and there's no denial. It's just justification and reasoning. And secondly, would a reasonable person wear a jacket, a mask, a hat, and turn off all the lights in the room pretty much if they were both intelligent and innocent, which he's claiming to be? And a nasal cannula, one of those things that kind of goes in your nose and wraps over your ears, can be used in a situation like this, unless a mask is needed, which I don't think is the case here. This is where you might have cases like COPD or ARDS, like acute respiratory distress syndrome, maybe a severely deviated septum where a cannula won't work. You can swap these out. This is extremely bizarre to the point where Scott, I'm with you. I think it's almost like it's fake. It's deliberately so dumb that it has to be fake.
Kaufman, telling you.
Yeah. Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, I'll give you another way you can tell this is absolute garbage. A rational person, first of all, he's not rational to think I'm going to take this off for 2 seconds because they freeze that frame and that's the rest of his life. His face is there. And he knows that. If you don't believe that, watch what he does when he pulls a mask off.
Yeah.
He has to slack his jaw and change the shape of his face. But facial identification doesn't care about you moving that soft tissue. It's going to work off bone points and that kind of thing. So they've got a good enough image. I'm with you. If they showed teeth, that would be another one.
Awesome.
But in that couple of seconds, he thinks this guy has to be off the charts, a narcissist who thinks he's smarter than everybody else on earth. He shows some amusement in his upper face when he answers that red tops piece. All this is delaying and it's a tactic to redirect. He knows that means nothing, Rhode Island, so he's taking advantage of it.
Hopefully.
If you said, have you ever been to the U.S., how would people respond? If I ask you, have you ever been to Afghanistan, Mark? Well, you might say yes. Yeah, no. Chase, be a different story. But if you ask a person, no is the answer, yes is the answer. Mark, what do you got?
Look, he does like that red top piece, and so does his wife, I think, because it's a real colloquialism. You're not going to know that the tabloid papers, the Sun, the Mirror, the Mail are known as the red tops simply because they have, red ink on there. So they show up better on the newsstand, and they're called the red tops. And so,
what a fantastic episode so far. This is really great. I'm glad I got the permission to do this, and I'm glad that I'm here to break this all down with you today. So again, I just want to thank Scott from the behavior panel to allow me to do this today, to use this episode, go through it with my audience, and give kind of a pre-warm-up for tomorrow for Brian Coogan joining the show. So we'll keep playing through.
So, he's got one over on the interviewer, and that's got to feel nice for him because the interviewer did show disdain. Or contempt, certainly. The side of the mouth goes up, faked his own death to flee prosecution, and the side of the mouth goes up. So the interviewer feels that this person is a con. So Dicey gets one over on him. Here's what he doesn't manage to hide is his R sound, which is an American R, when he says, never been to the United States for the whole of my entire life. English people don't say the word entire. They say entire. They drop the R on it. Now, to his credit, what he could do if he was smart is he would go, my wife is from Bristol, which is one of the places where the American accent, standard American accent originally comes from. My wife is from Bristol, where they do have the R's in them. And he could go, I've just picked up her R sound for that. I mean, normally I drop my R's, but I've been dropping my R's for my entire life. But for this one, I didn't drop my R, and I said the word entire, like you would from Bristol. But no, that wasn't a strong enough Bristol R. It was an American R on the word entire. That for me leaps out.
And Mark's probably loving this because he can get to break down all these fake accents being from over in England. So this is really good.
Accent drops. Good. Like he's a good mimic, and he chooses some really interesting icons to put forward. But it's so caricatured that for anybody British will go, you're playing it a bit big, mate. You're going a bit large on it, aren't you? Scott, what do you got on this one?
He had his shot to get a look at them choppers, and he didn't say it. He took the mask off, and he tightened his mouth up and pushed his chin in. There it was, right there, right in front of the world. He could have said, hey, hang on there a second. So let me see it. Do this. Could have done it. Didn't do it. That would it'd all been over at that point, unless he's in cahoots with the guy from the news. Anyway, the con is a masterful storyteller, and they will create on the spot a story that fits in with what you need or what you think should happen next, or how they could affect you from a sympathetic and an empathetic point. Now, the difference in sympathy and empathy, most everybody knows. 99% of the people know. There's a couple people out there that don't. Being sympathetic is when you feel sorry that something happened to somebody. So I'm so sorry that happened to him or her. They're having the roughest time. When you're empathetic, you're putting yourself in their position. You feel like, oh, they broke their finger. Or like when Greg, don't do it, Greg. Does his finger and twists it around, does all that. And so I think if you're empathetic, you see it as, oh my gosh, I bet that I don't feel sorry for him because it hurts, but you're like, oh my Lord, that would hurt me. You know, you can put yourself in the position of that person having pain. So they'll create stories around that to influence you or manipulate you as you go through. Another way for manipulation, a great example of that is what you'll see on Instagram and YouTube, where they'll, what's a good story? For example, they'll have it's a little old woman out and she's getting the snow off her back porch, but the delivery man comes up and he puts his package down. He sweeps off the whole porch. The next time you see that, look at that little old woman that's waddling out there. That's not a little old woman. Little old women don't walk that way. Little old women don't act that way. take a look at this. Here comes winter. So you'll know what I'm talking about when you see it. She's out sweeping off the thing. She's all huddled over and she's trying to sweep. And this guy, the UPS man or the FedEx guy, the Amazon guy comes up and takes the broom and sweeps it for her. And he's a hero. You'll see that. There's another one of my favorites. This woman who is doing Snow Angel. And then her horse.
It's funny, there was a creator that I was having a little bit of a beef with, and they said that I have a fake Massachusetts accent, I have a fake Boston accent, and that it comes and goes and it ramps. People don't understand. If you're not from Massachusetts and you're not from Boston, your accent will increase as maybe you get louder or you get frustrated or you're talking to another person face to face. You know, us Bostonians, we tend to talk really loud, we talk really fast, and we get very animated with our voices, and our accents will get deeper and louder as we talk. Tom's a perfect example. Tom has, but it's funny, and people don't understand this either. The closer you are to Boston is how the thicker your accent will get. So if you're a little bit further out on the outskirts of Boston, it gets a little bit more watered down. But as you get closer into Boston, it gets really intense. So, it's pretty funny.
Caesar doing it, and he starts doing a Snow Angel too.
Tommy. I agree.
I mean, no, that's not what's happening at all. She's doing a Snow Angel, or they've trained that horse to do it. Horses aren't going to see what you're doing and mimic it to that large. Would they, Greg? I don't think they would.
No.
I mean, I'm not talking about school here.
You can teach a horse to do just about anything with food, with treats and reward, but you have to teach them to do that. No horse is going to go, oh, that looks like fun. I'm going to go lay down and copy a human. That's not how they function.
Yeah. So they're manipulating your feelings by showing you that, going, oh, that horse is so wonderful. I'm going to send this to Chase, or I'm going to send it to Mark.
But I mean, you even see perfect examples as you get further down south too. The accent will change as you get closer to into the deep south. Like if you were in Virginia and then you went to New Orleans, it's going to be a completely different accent. If you're in I don't know, Kentucky, and you go to Montana, the accent's going to be a lot different too. So it's interesting. It's very interesting. But, here, Boston, like I said, as you get closer to the city, the accent will increase. It will go up. As you come out of the city, it gets a little bit more watered down.
Or Greg, I'm going to send it to my wife, whoever you're going to send it to. And that makes it get more views. Brilliant. Start paying attention to how you're manipulated, and you are, on Instagram and TikTok. Watch what happens in those things.
Yeah,
and those quick little videos you see that look like, this is wonderful or it's horrible. Pay attention to everything going on around you. Make sure everybody is doing what they should be doing in that situation. That the reactions are true and real, which if you watch this show enough, you have a pretty good idea about what looks real and fake once you start focusing on that, start observing it.
One of those tape replays.
I was going to say, if you're trying to show that you're not Nicholas Alaverdian, for 5 seconds, can you pull the mask down or no?
Watch.
It's better to try.
I mean, I would say just a couple of seconds, because obviously he needs it.
Okay. I just want to be clear. So you are not Nicholas Alaverdian. What do you say to people who think you are Nicholas Alaverdian, a Rhode Islander who faked his own death to flee prosecution?
I am Arthur Knight.
They're reading the bloody red tops.
I'm sorry, what was that?
They're reading the red tops.
They're reading the red tops.
So Arthur is saying they are reading the red tops, as in the newspapers, the red tops newspapers, tabloids.
Have you ever been to Rhode Island?
I've never been to the United States in the whole of my entire life.
Okay.
Higher.
You mentioned the documents that you gave us, and you're concerned about the documents, but you said those were confidential and sealed, but that's somebody else's case. How do you have the documents to Nicholas Alaverdian if you're not him?
Which documents?
You said the ones you sent me, that you then said you thought should not be on the website because they were from his case, the second offender case. and that they were sealed. So why do you have his documents, and why do you care so much about his documents if you're not him?
Essentially, what the reporter's asking, you have Nicholas Rossi's paperwork, and that paperwork is sealed. How did you obtain that if you're not Nicholas Rossi, aka Aliverdian, and you're this character, Arthur Knight, this person, Arthur Knight? Makes a lot of sense.
Arthur saying he's referring to the emails between the two of you.
Okay, well, you seem to have a lot of information about Nicholas Aliverdian for someone who is not him. Right. I know you're just trying to prove that you're not him, but you seem to care a lot about his case and clearing his name.
Good questions.
I believe that's you're referring to his name was cleared. However, if it's disputed that I am not Mr. Rossi and the Crown are instructed by the states to go forward to see the case, which would be rather daft in my opinion, because they're already down on 2 counts, namely passage of time and numerous ECHR or European Court of Human Rights violations and etc. They are also going to say that he is Mr. Rossi.
Oh gosh.
He will have a timeline to prove and a significant life events and that sort of thing. So, for example, whilst my wife and I were on our honeymoon,
I don't think so,
this
Dr.
was all over the news, talking about how he was dying, and I don't think that is how we spent our honeymoon. So, when you are being accused of an individual, you need to know everything about this man. And so, in requesting documents and instructing private investigators, instructing anyone and everyone to ensure that this case is assessed from the appropriate perspective. We need to know everything about this man because I am not going to be suffering for someone else's egregious behavior, in my opinion.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, just one thing on here. Again, to that piece of suffering. Again, the suffering I think he's using in order that we feel sorry for him and we're conned by this situation. Most of what he's saying here, for me, is absolutely unintelligible. I have no idea what he's talking about. But one phrase comes through loud and clear: human rights violations. Human rights violations. Again, there is no suffering greater than people who have suffered human rights violations. I mean, I'm sure when I put that forward, you get all kinds of images in your head. Not necessarily the image of this guy, but it does conjure something which is bigger than, most every individual. The human rights violation and suffering, very clear. The rest of it, absolutely unintelligible. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, here's one of the best examples of chaff and redirect we've ever had, except where he mumbles so much. He's like some character that the chaff is unintelligible, to Mark's point, but he's trying to chaff and redirect. And he does that for 2 solid minutes before he finally gets to a legitimate reason. If accused, I need to know. We always talk about things being in clusters, and this is also a poster child for clusters. There's not one problem with what he says. He's asked a good question. Why would you have access to this guy's personal information? Right. And then he says, witch docs, that's a delaying tactic. Turtled. His head drops down, his voice goes back to high pitched, and he goes, back that choppy thing. There's a deviation baseline. Increased blink rate, chaff and redirect, fading facts, no denial, eye blocking. Is that enough? I think that's enough to say the guy's lying, except for it's just so easy to see. And now his wife is starting to show some signs of stress because you see a dry mouth and pursed lips. Chase, what do you got? Actually, Scott, what do you got?
All right. All right. So we talked about empathy and sympathy last time. So let's talk about the lack of empathy these people have. They won't care what happens to you. If they take your stuff, or if they ruin your company, or if they take everything you've got, won't bother them.
So real quick, I'll just answer this. So Steph, he has been extradited back to the United States. His charges currently right now are in Utah. He is in a Utah jail, and he is still playing this character. His next hearing, I believe, and it's going to be in March. And it's the first week of March, either the 4th or the 5th, which is very strange because those, I think, are the same dates as Brian Walsh here in Massachusetts. A lot of interesting things happening in March.
Won't bother them at all. So you'll have to start watching for things that let you know that they may not be empathetic, or they lack empathy. And one of those things could be the way they act around children. And when they talk to little children, do they dismiss them? Do they laugh when the little baby falls over? Do they not care if a dog gets hit by a car? Do they not feel any empathy toward or about anything at all? So watch for the little signs of that when you're talking to them. Bring up situations where you say, oh, this something or that happened, and watch their reaction. Make sure it's a story that involves somebody getting hurt or something horrible, but and see if they are empathetic toward that. Some people won't be normally or naturally. They won't tell you what they think or how they feel, but it's good to start throwing those little things out there. If you suspect someone as being a con, or you're being conned, throw a couple of things out there to see how they react to it.
All right, real quick, I'll just show some of the hearing if you haven't seen it. Let's do this right here. Here it goes. And the funny thing about it, he's grown the hair longer. He's grown the beard longer. He's concealing himself even more. Let's play this real quick.
Rossi, but he's saying his name is Arthur Knight Brown.
Oh, that's one of the AKAs. It looks like.
What's your birthday?
We're having a really
He's playing this disheveled, man.
Is it July 11th, 1987?
No, my lady, it's 22nd.
And he's keeping with this English theme. No, milady, because that's what they call in court over there, milady. And look at the prosecutors like, give me a fucking break.
November 1986.
22nd of November, 1986.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, Tamara Vasquez for the state. This individual has been extradited, and he has not admitted his name or birth date accurately, and so I don't think we're going to be successful on that today either. It's also known as.
Objection, my lady. That is complete hearsay, and I would ask your ladyship that the prosecution show cause for why they proceeded to.
So, Mr. Knight, I'm going.
Whilst I had an appeal pending in the Supreme Court.
Look at the prosecutor.
Mr. Knight, I'm going to appoint a lawyer for you. There's a no bail warrant in this case, so we're going to set it for a detention hearing in 10.
All right, we'll play some more of that tomorrow when I get Brian on the show. I really want to get through this behavior panel episode. It is a little bit long. We got about another hour or so into it, so let's play through this.
Mark, what do you got?
I've been.
Did you go? Oh yeah, you went first. Chase then.
Yeah, so he's y'all got everything. This is a huge cluster. One thing I will point out, though, is he's referring to emails, which were also confidential and sealed. The only thing that gets sealed are court records and legal stuff, not emails. I've never received a sealed email, even with a security clearance. So there's our first whopper of the video. The entire video is essence of deception. It's an innocent person will be openly commenting and collecting information on the person they're accused of being. I think most of us would want to know who this person is we were accused of being or impersonating or whatever. And he fails to recognize this. And he thinks that it needs a weird, awkward explanation. If an innocent person were asked about being in possession of all these documents, they would openly and very readily admit that they wanted to not only prove that they aren't that person, but they want to know who the hell this person is. I also think most reasonable people would want that person to be found, and that would be a big relief in their life. And right at the end here, I just want to read you the quote that you're about to hear at the end of this clip on the replay. He's going to say, "I am not going to be suffering for someone else's egregious behavior, in my opinion." I'm just going to leave you with that and let you think of it what you will.
One of those tape replays.
You mentioned the documents that you gave us, and you're concerned about the documents, but you said those were confidential and sealed, but that's somebody else's case. How do you have the documents to Nicholas Aliberti if you're not him?
Which documents?
You said the ones you sent me that you then said you thought should not be on the website because they were from his case, the second offender case, and that they were sealed. So why do you have his documents, and why do you care so much about his documents if you're not him?
I was referring to our emails.
Arthur saying he's referring to the emails between the two of you.
Okay, well, you seem to have a lot of information about Nicholas Aliberti for someone who is not him. Right. I know you're just trying to prove that you're not him, but you seem to care a lot about his case and clearing his name.
No. Well, no. I believe that's your referring to his name was cleared. However, if it is proven that I am not Mr. Rossi and the Crown are instructed by the states to go forward with pursuing the case, which would be rather daft in my opinion, because they're already there on two counts, namely passage of time and numerous ECHR or European Court of Human Rights violations and etc. They are also going to say that if he is Mr. Rossi, he will have a timeline to prove and like significant life events and that is sort of thing. So, for example, whilst my wife and I were on our honeymoon, his friend was all over the news talking about how he was dying, and I don't think that is how we spent our honeymoon. So, when you are being accused of an individual, you need to know everything about this man. And so, in requesting documents and instructing investigators, instructing anyone and everyone to ensure that this case is assessed.
This is just a bunch of mumbo jumbo, is what it is. Thank you.
We need to know everything about this man because I am not going to be suffering for someone else's egregious behavior, in my opinion.
But again, the American authorities say Nicholas Aliberti and Nicholas Rossi is a person whose multiple aliases, was a liar, a manipulator, and was very savvy at hiding himself. So why shouldn't I believe that you're just doing that again?
Because we also have in our possession a letter from Mr. Aliberti.
That was Brian tomorrow is going to be
to us by the United States authorities.
And Brian's great. I can't. He was such a gentleman. He when I talked to him, he's like, "Hey, am I allowed to swear on the show? Because I've said some things to Nicholas before that would, be there's some swearing in it." And I'm like, Brian, you can say whatever you want. We want to hear everything that you had to say to him. And what I'll do is I'll grab some videos and we'll play those along with Brian and just get his reaction to a lot of what he's seeing. And there is a video out there, about an 8-minute video of Brian actually talking to Nicholas while he's playing this character of Arthur Knight. And he's like, Nick, it's you. And I want to hear his reaction to that too. So he's a Scottish guy from Rhode Island. Scott says, Luke, I am your father. No. All right, let's keep going.
That claims that states that he has the intention to move overseas and is doing that for his future and his safety. And he, as for the aliases, you have an alias of Alabertian, forename N.I., Alabertian Rosie, forename Nicholas, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas Edward, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas Alabertian, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas E., family name Rosie, forename Nicholas, family name Alan, forename Nick, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas. And no.
I guess my question is, why shouldn't I believe that you're him?
Yeah.
You can believe whatever you like. I'm just telling you what I know.
Yeah. Chase, what do you got?
This accent is so bad. I don't know how his wife got over this at the initial stage of that relationship. When they first started dating, something had to click in her head. At some moment in time, she had to realize this sounds different, sounds unusual. I don't know the case very well, so I'm not sure what all these names mean. And why would the U.S. authorities send him this letter that he says he got? One thing you'll notice is that the British actors seem to have developed a lot better skills at doing American accents. But I think that's largely because they live in the U.S. They've trained to work in Hollywood for a really long time. There's probably Americans who are on Broadway and stuff in London who do a great job. But they're equally bad and good on both sides, like Meryl Streep doing Margaret Thatcher or Hugh Laurie doing Dr. Greg House. He makes this common mistake of taking on this more central dialect of this accent. I think it's different here. I don't know what it is. I'm going to pass it to Mark in a second. But he's not using the dialect of where he's claiming to live in the UK, as far as I can tell. Mark, what are your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so he shifts around from place to place to place because he hasn't grown up anywhere in the UK, essentially, or in Dublin, where I think he claims to be born in Dublin. We'll hear in a moment him going for an Irish accent in a few. But yeah, it's all over the place. For me, actually, Greg Chase, it's hard to pick up his accent because he's just reciting bureaucracy into a bucket at the moment. It's just hard to. The closest I can get is I've got an old.
I'm so glad that you said that. It's so true. And the funny thing is, they're from here. When you hear Affleck and Damon's accents, their Boston accents so bad. That's why I literally could not watch The Departed. It's so bad. The accents are so bad in that movie. They're so over the top and they're so bad. I can't get over it. It's so funny that you said that because I say it all the time. The Departed, I can't watch. It's the most unwatchable movie because of the accents.
Italian biscuit tin here, and I haven't tried this out, but this is the kind of thing. It is. This is the kind of sound that I'm getting. Imagine some kind of bureaucratic. That's all I can hear from the guy. And here's my point. I didn't want to show you my Italian biscuit tin. What I wanted to show you is that if you're trying to clear your name, clarity is your number one objective. So were I trying to clear my name, say in Italy, I would not pick up a biscuit tin and talk into the biscuit tin like this. I would take a moment, even if I was on my dying breath, I'd go, I will die. I will die telling you this. So I'm going to take away the biscuit tin and clearly in my last breath tell you that I'm not this person. I'm innocent of everything. He doesn't do that. It's very odd. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, it's bigger than that, Mark. Throughout this entire thing, neither he nor she gives definite answers to anything. We're going to see in a minute where she talks about a number of years. Instead of, they don't come out and say, I did this, I did this, I did that, I did that. And he does when this questioner, who does a great job of using repeat questions and not letting him get away, starts asking him questions, he chaffs and chaffs and chaffs. And he reads a laundry list of names, surname this, first name that, surname this, first name that. What the hell is he doing? Look, no, I'm not any of these guys. There's not a single denial in this thing, not one. And he tries to wrap himself in authority because he says the U.S. government sent me this.
Right.
And he uses the word claims and then realizes, I just wrapped myself, whether it's intelligently or not, I just wrapped myself in the authority of the U.S. government. I can't say claims. I have to say states. That's a big difference. He's correcting himself. Then more chaff, just running on down the path, reading all these things. When I went through interrogator school, there was a really good video we used to show how effective an interpreter needs to be. And it was Vietnam, and it was used on CBS in like the 1960s. And they had this interpreter who was going in and asking questions of the local villagers. And one of them was going, "We hate you. We want you to be gone. You need to be out of here," to this American. And then a person living in the US who was Vietnamese heard the interpreter and said, "That's not what he's saying."
Wow.
He's saying chicken and dog and stuff like that, because what you've done is you got a bad guy as the interpreter who's in there and told him, just say some stuff, count to 9, do things like that. That's what this guy reminds me of. There's no passion in it, just not trying to get himself out of trouble. There's more than you would ever see. Anyway, I'll get through this. The wife is moving in the chair, showing some more discomfort. There's just one more challenge at the end where he says, "That's not what I asked," and still no denial. Scott, what do you got?
All right. One of my favorite things, and I mean one of my all-time favorite things in the world, because it fascinates me, is when an Australian person or a British person can do the American accent on TV or Netflix or something,
playing the character.
like in The Walking Dead. I don't personally watch it, but my wife watches it, and sometimes I'll come in and they'll be on there. The main guy in that, from the first version of it, he was from Australia, and he sounds like he's from over in Knoxville. I mean, you can't tell the difference, and I'm fascinated by that because we pay attention to the way someone sounds. We pay attention to the lilt of their voice. We try to nail down where they're from by their accent. These people sound like they'll. I don't know if they pick a town and go there and live for 4 years before they do these shows, but some of these people, and it's fascinating. When somebody goes, they're British, right? Or, she's Australian, right? And it's like, well, what are you talking about? I love that. That's why, Chase, I think that his wife, I think she knew this was fake going into it, because at some point on their date, he's going to mess up with his whatever accent he chose to use. If he says he's British, or is he saying he's British, or what is that? I don't know what he's saying he is British, right? What is he saying he is?
Well, I think he says he was born in Ireland. I think he says he was.
Oh, okay.
Dublin, but then he says that he had a rough childhood in Northern Ireland. So
there's a whole bunch.
He's from Rhode Island. But he's from
a lot of the major actors in Hollywood now are British.
Rhode Island.
I wonder if that comes down to pay or something like that.
Island.
Rhode Island, right?
Yeah. So anyway. I think she knows. I think she knew from the top when he went and said, "Okay, here's what's happening. I got to tell you," because at some point he's got to come out of that, the accent and start talking like this and go, "Here, let me tell you what's going on. Don't freak out. I got to tell you something." And she's like, "What?" If it went down that road, because I don't think there's any way she couldn't know that. But just listen to her for 3 minutes and go, "That's a weird accent, man. What's up with that? Where are you from?" She'd zero in on it, especially on that first date. So I mean, that's my impression. That's what I think would happen. That's why I think she knows, or that she knew a long time ago, or however long ago it started. So let's talk about the overconfidence of the con man. They're known as the confidence man or confidence woman, because they have such confidence when they go into these bold-faced lies and doing these things that are just that take unbelievable confidence. If you're lying that hard, like Elizabeth Holmes. I mean, my gosh, man, that took confidence to be able to lie. Just look at these people right in the face and go, "Yeah, we're going to save some lives. Can you take a little bit of blood like this?" And it tells you all these things that could be wrong with you. That takes a lot of nerve to do that. So quite often their overconfidence is what will do them in. So be careful and pay attention to the person who's overconfident. They say, "We'll go do that." Yeah, let's go do it right now. If there's no way to go do it. But they say, "Yeah, I will go do that right now." I say, we go do it. And you can't. And they know you can't. So you may have a con person, however you're going to say it, a confidence person, a con on your hands. All right. Is that everybody? All right.
What a great episode so far. Really good.
Nobody hearing that the way I'm hearing it?
Sure.
Okay, sure it is.
One of those tape replays.
But again, the American authorities say Nicholas Aliverdi and Nicholas Rossi is a person whose multiple aliases, was a liar, a manipulator, and was very savvy at hiding himself. So why shouldn't I believe that you're just doing that again?
Because we also have in our possession a letter from Mr. Aliverdi that was given to us by the United States authorities that claims that, or that states that he has the intention to move overseas and is doing that for his future and his safety. And he, as for the aliases, you have an alias of Aliverdian, forename N.I., Aliverdian Rosie, forename Nicholas, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas Edward, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas Aliverdian, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas E,
He's saying
family name Rosie, forename Nicholas, family name Alan, forename Nick, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas, family name Rosie, forename Nicholas. And now,
I guess my question is, why shouldn't I believe that you're him?
You can believe whatever you like. I'm just telling you what I know.
Yeah.
I probably did.
Dude, it really doesn't sound like a chair squeaking.
It is a chair.
Can you do it again?
Sure, I can.
Can you?
Miranda, what do you think of this situation that, again, basically everybody here and the authorities in the United States say the person you're sitting next to is not who you say he is, and that he's a serial liar, someone who faked his death, and also a serial sex offender in the United States?
Well, I know my husband inside out. I've been with him a number of years now, and I think a husband and wife, you get to a very close level that you know everything about each other, and you know characteristics and how you act together. What I read about this Nicholas Rossi, whatever his name is that he from what I read, is he's done some pretty terrible things, and how he acts, and he seems to have done them over a number of years over his life, and he seems to do it consistently. So since my husband and I have been together, he has been a gentleman, he has been kind, he doesn't show any characteristics which frighten me, make me feel uncomfortable. I'm a pretty strong woman, and I've been through different long-term relationships in my life, and I know what to look for. And I think when you make that decision to marry someone, you have to make sure that you know that person inside out. And
after 3 comas.
Absolutely, after 3 comas too. And from what I read about this Nicholas Rossi is that he has a history of sexual assaults and things like that around women. And I think if you have that type of tendency, you can't hide that. I think that comes up time and time again. And my husband has shown sort of no tendencies at all that has ever frightened me. So, I know my husband very well. All I can say is to be in this situation is quite bizarre. That's all I can say. I went from, in September, my husband catching COVID in hospital, 3 comas, which in itself has been so distressing, so traumatic.
5% chance of living.
Absolutely. And I could have almost have been a widow, and that was told to me time and time again. And the sheer number of times that he went on a ventilator meant that his survival rate was just going down and down and down. So to come out of that and for my husband to be a COVID survivor, to then be met with this bizarre story, this international story, which is pretty crazy. We're just a normal couple average couple with 2 dogs, doing very normal things in our lives. And to be in this media storm is pretty horrendous. And to have press at your door, really scared to go out for a pint of milk, and because of the press intrusion, it's been very, very hard. But together, we're going to fight it together, because Arthur's my husband. I love him very much, and he's not this person. There's no way.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
So back to the suffering. And 3 comas he's been in, 3 comas. Now, I'm not suggesting that he wouldn't have been if he was to suffer COVID and he's intubated, then effectively one could say you're put in a coma every day, you're sedated every day in order to deal with, the tube and various tubes down your mouth. So I'm unsure whether actually, are you saying it was 3 really long comas, or was it sedation every day because of being intubated, and therefore, but you've turned it into the story of 3 comas? Because maybe more likely it would be 1 coma or daily coma, but no, 3 comas, that's more suffering. Somebody said, well, if I've had 1 coma, they've had 3, well, they've suffered more. Clearly. So I think it's suffering stakes here. The wife here, interesting. I know him better. Says after 3 comas. And that logic doesn't fit for me. I don't think, sure, you may care for somebody more and you may have bigger feelings, and you may have suffered more because your partner is in a coma, and therefore that suffering may have created more feelings for them, sympathy, empathy, as Scott was saying. But somebody being in a coma doesn't cause you to know them better, because they're not doing anything. Right. Maybe you know yourself better if somebody else goes into a coma. But anyway, it doesn't make any sense. One last piece of suffering there. Press intrusion, more suffering going on. So here's my question that comes to mind, because the wife is interesting here. Is she being conned? Has she been conned in some way, or is she complicit?
In on it, right.
Was she complicit from moment one? If she was complicit, was she conned, and then she became complicit? So, and if she has been conned, what is it she's gaining from this?
What I was saying about all this, what is the benefit? Because if she's in on it, what is the benefit? It seems like she's the one that has the money. He's conning her. What is the benefit? And I'm glad that they're bringing this up right now.
Most cons that get played on you, there's some kind of extreme going on that you go, yeah, but if I could have that, I would give up all reasonable thought right now that this person may be conning me. This is too good. Yes, it is too good to be true. But what I want so much that I'm willing to suspend my judgment right now. If she was conned, what was she suspending her judgment around? I don't know the answer to this at this point, but it interests me, as I'm sure it may interest you. Greg, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, there are 3 lapses of logic to me, Mark. The one you just said, he's unconscious and you got to know him better. No, that doesn't work that way. Okay, he's in a coma. You might get to know yourself better. It might strengthen your relationship. All kinds of other things you might say. Had COVID and almost died. Doesn't have anything to do with whether you're a rapist or not. He might have had COVID and almost died. Don't care. Still could be a rapist. There are plenty of bad guys on death row who get resuscitated from really bad illnesses only to be executed. They can die just like the rest of us. So that's a stupid one. The other one that's kind of a lapse in logic is, I know him as a wife, which means I know he couldn't possibly do that. Anybody heard of a guy named Huerman? His wife didn't know. All kinds of serial killers escape their wife's attention all the time. And this supposedly happened long ago before they were together. Here's one of those places where she doesn't use numbers. She says in other places, we were together, we've been married for 2 years, we've known each other for 10. Here, a number of years. Anytime you use those kind of shading of numbers, I want to know why. Now we're going to see a great example of his extra face. Scott, his extra face is this heaving thing. If you've ever been around anybody who suffers like COPD or something and they're genuinely heaving and they have a hard time breathing, they don't come out of it like that to answer questions. They have a hard time, and it gets progressively harder. The interesting piece to me is this guy's panting. If this is oxygen, that's a dangerous thing to be doing, because you can get to a point where you get a runaway and you got no control over it then. But this guy's, I mean, look, I don't ever see anything in here that makes me think this guy's telling the truth at any point. His breathing is smoother than when he's talking than when he's sitting there and knows he's trying to play the pity card. It's all I see here is over and over and over trying to play pity. I love him. There's one thing that I love here she does. I love him very much. She closes her eyes, and she does a lot of closed eye talking, but she also does a request for approval with her eyes closed. Try that. By request for approval, I mean your forehead comes up and those wrinkles show, and at the same time her eyes are closed. Try that for just a second. See how awkward that is. You have to be really trying to send a message, and at the same time your body's trying to send another one. That's all I got. Scott, what do you got?
All right. Okay, Mark. I think what happened was he used the classic con and psychopath tactics to get somebody to fall in love with him. So I think she probably is in love with him because she's following down this road trying to protect him and help convince everyone that he's who he says he is. I think he used charisma. I think he used manipulation. I think he used all these sympathy and empathy to his advantage and got her all swept up in who he is and trying to save him from going to prison or whatever. That happens all the time, I think. So I think that's what's happened.
This question, Mary, let's flip the gender. Look how many men had no idea of their other half, double lives, even having another family. I mean, it happens in other situations with what's reversed the role. How many guys have gone through this? It happens. Happens a lot more than you think
in this situation. And that goes to adaptability.
Not always the guys. It's not always the guys, ladies. Ladies play tricks too. Ladies do this stuff too. I'm not an expert on that data, but I would probably think it's probably close and pretty equal. It does happen.
Because that's another big thing you'll see in cons is they will adapt to anything going on.
Too.
You can say, hey, we're all going scuba diving. They may not know how to scuba dive, but they'll tell you they've had I know how to do this and this, so they can be a part of that. They'll adapt their story to fit with whatever changes in the situation you're in. That will help them get to their goal of stealing your stuff or taking something or ruining your company or whatever it's going to be. So their stories will adapt. Their backgrounds, where they came from, will adapt to what what fits the situation they're talking about. Quite often they don't stick around this long though. That's the thing when they get married or there's a guy, and I talk about him on here all the time, and come to find out, when I found out he was a psychopath and a con, and from talking to his wife and dealing with that, he'd been married like 3 times, this guy, and was getting ready to get married again in Florida when he's in Canada now. But they couldn't get him in Florida, so now he's almost hiding in Canada. He's got a TikTok, or he had an Instagram account. I'm not going to say who it is, but man, I can't wait. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I agree with y'all. And she makes this remark. She's asked how she feels, and she makes no denial whatsoever, and points to tendencies and her skills in being able to see these tendencies. And I think it's so bizarre that she's not able to say it's not him. And she literally goes on, his own wife, to use behavior, or her version of behavior profiling, to prove his identity, instead of just saying, here's who he is. I know who he is. Or she could make a denial. She could state a fact, or maybe she could talk about knowing his origin stories, or seeing places where he grew up, or even meeting 1 or 2 family members or friends from his childhood. And when she starts talking about the assault behaviors and stuff for a special treat, watch his breathing rate. The moment she starts talking about this assault, not only does his breathing shift up into his chest, he almost starts hyperventilating from the stress, I think, of thinking about this topic. And she says, Arthur's my husband. I love him very much, and he's not this person. She means this a little bit. Maybe she's borrowing from her past when she believed that. But there's a part of her that's extremely worried about this in a serious way, this entire thing. Everything up to that point was flowing and fluid, but then her eyes lock shut when she's saying that. So closing our eyes in this, we're going to see another example in a second, acts as a physical barrier to external stimuli, and it allows somebody a little bit of emotional space to keep calm. And it's almost a form of emotional detachment or withdrawal from what's going on. A person might just close their eyes to disconnect from this reality, which might be too stressful or painful or overwhelming at that moment. But we're going to see a different kind of eye closure here coming up.
One of those tape replays.
Miranda, what do you think of this situation that, again, basically everybody here and the authorities in the United States say the person you're sitting next to is not who you say he is, and that he's a serial liar, someone who faked his death, and also a serial sex offender in the United States?
Well, I know my husband inside out. I've been with him a number of years now, and I think a husband and wife, you get to a very close level that you know everything about each other, and you know characteristics and how you act together. What I read about this Nicholas Rossi, whatever his name is that he from what I read, is he's done some pretty terrible things, and how he acts, and he seems to have done them over a number of years over his life, and he seems to do it consistently. So since my husband and I have been together, he has been a gentleman, he has been kind, he doesn't show any characteristics which frighten me, make me feel uncomfortable. I'm a pretty strong woman, and I've been through different long-term relationships in my life, and I know what to look for. And I think when you make that decision to marry someone, you have to make sure that you know that person inside out. And after 3 comas. Absolutely, after 3 comas too. And from what I read about this Nicholas Rossi is that he has a history of sexual assaults and things like that around women.
So
and I
bizarre.
think if you have that type of tendency, you can't hide that. I think that comes up time and time again. And my husband has shown...
Well, it reminds me of like an episode when you see like on Dr. Phil, when they have those ladies that come on and they get emailed a photo and they think that they're falling in love. These 60-year-old women are falling in love with a 29-year-old athlete or model from like England. And, they're taking money from these women, and then Dr. Phil goes over and has someone like try to hunt down this person and meet them, and then come to find out, one, it's not the person they are, or they never show up. And it's just all those weird, bizarre situations. But even though when they're exposed, I've seen on these shows, and particularly it's women that get catfished like this, they still believe that it is the person that they're saying. I saw some episodes on Dr. Phil like not too long ago about this. It was truly fascinating. So it may be one of these types of situations.
Sort of no tendencies at all that has ever frightened me. So, I know my husband very well. All I can say is to be in this situation is quite bizarre. That's all I can say. I went from, in September, my husband catching COVID in hospital, 3 comas, which in itself has been so distressing, so traumatic.
5% chance, maybe.
Absolutely. And I could have almost been a widow, and that was told to me time and time again. And the sheer number of times that he went on a ventilator meant that his survival rate was just going down and down and down. So to come out of that and for my husband to be a COVID survivor, to then be met with this bizarre story, this international story, which is pretty crazy. We're just a normal couple, average couple with two dogs, doing very normal things in our lives. And to be in this media storm is pretty horrendous. And to have press at your door, really scared to go out for a pint of milk, and because of the press intrusion, it's been very, very hard. But together, we're going to fight it together, because Arthur's my husband. I love him very much, and he's not this person. There's no way.
It's probably a 40-year-old chair, probably a 50-year-old chair. This place has got a lot of vintage stuff. Kind of cool place, but this chair is not one of them.
And just finally, I know I asked you this before. You can't show me your bicep further up your arm?
Oh, for the moment, and then at a later date, where I can email you photos or share them to you live, if you're into that sort of thing.
What was that? I'm sorry?
I said I can email you photos later on, or I can share them to you live if you're into that sort of thing.
Okay, so you can't write. You can't. You're saying you're not going to roll up your sleeve to show me right now.
Because he's like, I'm in the
I'm
act of
saying
getting removed.
I can show you live if you're into that sort of thing. Or I can email you photographs later. It's up to yourself.
Well, if you can do it now, sure.
But that would require undoing my oxygen mask, removing my blazer, my shirt.
That's it. And to be fair, like, it would be extremely difficult because Arthur can't walk, and I literally have to lift him up. So it's very difficult because he can't wait, he can't load bear on his feet.
All right, Greg, what do you got?
Yeah, there's more good repeats by this interviewer. Great job not letting the guy off the hook, keeping the push. But this guy's just not going to answer anything factually. Look at all those single shoulder shrugs. I think this is right when he's talking about sending you pics. And then he says, if you're into that sort of thing, I'll show you live. And then she looks amused. Look at her eyes. Look at that smile at the eyes. And then she does something that you rarely see in people. I call it the hallmark of a smartass. And that is when you purse your lips and pulse them. Watch her doing that. She thinks he scored a 0.2. She thinks that's funny. She thinks that's good. For me, in the midst of all the rest of this stuff, there's a problem. Chase, I'm sure you saw people like this in the military too, in your years of being in different places. You don't get them much when you get to ops, but you run into people who will fake an injury not to have to do something or not to have to be accountable. Yeah. I'll tell you, when I went through SEER school, the guy that was our senior ranking officer faked a neck injury, and we had to carry him around tied to a gurney, held up vertically the whole time just to make a point. Don't fake anything. There's a guy that was in my platoon one time who fell on the run and said, "Oh, I can't finish the run." I said, "Today." And the next day I had him right back out there trying to finish his PT test. So some people think that's a way of getting out of it. And I think all this stuff is just him doing that. Do you believe anything about these guys by watching her do this kind of smart ass thing, him trying to get a one up? This is about clearing your name. We don't see any of that. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, I completely agree. It's hilarious. And he offers to show it live, I think 2 times, and then just does a complete retraction of that. And she's obviously completely complicit here, in my opinion, but I wonder if there was a transition period where she totally believed him, and then cognitive dissonance kept her invested in this relationship. And once you make a couple of agreements to hide a couple of things, the psychological stress of just breaking out of that identity is extremely uncomfortable. And we humans are all of us, experts at resolving psychological discomfort that we call cognitive dissonance. But we tend to resolve it in ways that aren't really healthy or rational. And most of the time we'll double down on something just because we've taken a few steps in that direction. In a few minutes, I'm going to give you a full list of how this could have transpired from meeting them, finding out the deception, and then continuing in the relationship. I'm going to give you a complete list of how that might have happened, because that's what's most fascinating to me. Mark, what do you got?
Yeah, just agreement. Greg, 2 shoulder shrugs, single shoulder shrugs on showing that to the tattoos. That means that I would suggest he is not certain that he would ever show those tattoos or ever send any information about that. Not likely to happen. I can show you later if you're into that sort of thing. Okay, so he's now casting some kind of, sexual innuendo onto this interviewer. I think you're exactly right, Greg. I concur completely. She is amused, if not even, and I know, Scott, I think you called it right last week on Duper's Delight, and we always go, I don't know, because it is a tough one. It is a tough one to call, but I don't know, like it's maybe, I would gamble on the cusp of Duper's Delight on that one. Not fully in, but I think there's a good argument for Duper's Delight on that from her. So to the point of, is she complicit? I think you're right, Chase. She is at this point. Does it mean she was complicit from the start? Well, I don't know that, but I'm interested in hearing some arguments as to, yes or no on that. But is she complicit at this point? I really do think so. It's interesting, Greg, you were saying, faking of illness. I don't have a DSM on me right away, but off the top of my head, and I think I might be accurate, malingering is comorbid with narcissistic complex. So that makes sense. I can imagine the two things. Well, I can't imagine it. I mean, it's statistically accurate that the two things go together. So he says, I can't walk. More suffering, but maybe he can't walk. Maybe he can't. Well, we'll see a little bit later. Let's hang in there till the very end, because we're going to see whether he can walk or he can't walk, and whether this is malingering, comorbid with narcissism or not. But yeah, I think she's complicit at this point. Scott, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, this is his story. He's saying nothing really when you listen to him. He's making this up, like I was saying earlier, this is what the con will do. He's trying to adapt to what's happening, so he's making things up as he goes along. And it's not even good. I mean, what he's talking about is really boring. If I was if I was having to interview this guy, I'm sure I would yawn so hard they would have to give my yawn a hurricane name. That's how bad it would be, because there's nothing to his answers. I mean, it's just sprinkled with what the other guy's asking him about, because he doesn't know, but he's trying to adapt to what's happening. So let's move on to risk taking with the con. Quite often they'll take calculated risks to help them get what they want. And sometimes they'll take a risk, and it may be close enough just to, if it goes wrong in the smallest, tiniest way, they're going to end up in prison, but they will still do it because they have this confidence that lets them do that. They're like, I know I can do it. It's me. I can do this. I'm awesome. That's where the narcissism comes in, because we were talking about this earlier, and I swear to you, I really, I ran to the guy. I said, Greg, this is not real, man. I really think this is a bit. And then, of course, it made sense because Greg said, don't forget, with the narcissism in this guy is so big, he thinks everybody's going to believe it. And I thought, oh, that's true, which would let us know he's not very smart either, because if he actually sees himself on TV after that and goes, I'm doing it, man. I got it, babe. It's working. I mean, what is he thinking at that point? So I don't know, man. But I'm with you, Chase. I think there's that 3 to 4% chance this might be a bit, and he's just selling it. And in about 12 years, when he gets out of prison, he's going to go, look what I did. He's going to be the most famous artistic, or what do they call those people? Performance artists of all time, if he pulls that off. So, well,
maybe he goes to prison, and this is the way he plans to give her money while he's in prison, is for them to sell the videos as performance art.
Yeah.
I mean, this is insane. If he thinks people believe it.
I think there's a chance his wife may pull out of this deal and then have a book deal on her hands.
That's possible. It's possible.
But who would find this interesting enough to buy a book and to read a book about it?
People bought Prince Harry's book.
That's right. A lot of people. If he goes to prison, we should invite her on the show.
Oh, yeah. Let's do that.
We know you were duped. Yeah, she's not coming.
Oh, she would.
One of those tape replays.
And just finally, I know I asked you this before. You can't show me your bicep further up your arm.
Yeah, I mean, listen, the dude the dude faked cancer. I mean, that's the worst type of human. If you want to even call someone a human being for faking cancer, he used that to fake his death, to assume this new alleged identity and move overseas into Scotland and become Arthur Knight. So he's a major disgusting person. Major disgusting person. All right, let's keep playing through here.
And then at a later date, write an email to photos or children to live, referring to that sort of thing.
What was that? I'm sorry?
I said I can email you photos later on, or I can show them to you live, referring to that sort of thing.
Okay, so you can't write. You can't. You're saying you're not going to roll up your sleeve to show me right now.
I'm saying I can show you live if you're into that sort of thing. Or I'll email you photographs later. It's up to yourself.
Well, if you can do it now, sure.
I'm super tired.
That would require undoing my oxygen mask, removing my blazer, my shirt.
That's it. And to be fair, like, it would be extremely difficult because Arthur can't walk, and I literally have to lift him up. So it's very difficult because he can't wait, he can't load bear on his feet.
For us too.
All this.
After yet another press conference, Arthur, along with his wife Miranda, spoke to us remotely.
I know you have a lot to say, which is great.
I want to be as honest and truthful as possible.
It's very important that our story is heard.
I was adopted.
Arthur told us he began life as an orphan in Ireland.
I grew up all over Dublin, Belfast.
He said he later moved to London and through grit and determination worked his way up the corporate ladder in communications.
I had a very good run as a public relations consultant.
He and Miranda said they met at a London art museum in 2011.
We just struck up a conversation, exchanged kind of contact detail, but I was not,
With good friends at the time.
That's it.
They said they were friends at first. She was in a relationship and busy with her career.
So previously I was, an executive, and I've worked in account management.
But several years later, they said they met up again. Romance blossomed.
We fell in love. We love each other very much, deeply in love.
And in February of 2020, the same month that Nicholas Alaverdian supposedly died, Arthur and Miranda got married.
Nicholas, Rossi, or Alaverdian, or whatever, had died. We were on our honeymoon.
All right, Mark, what do you got?
Well, many people are looking at the guy that he's shown up as now, with that bow tie and the blazer on and the little round glasses and the hairstyle, and going, I've seen that somewhere before. What icon is he playing? So I want you to look for Billy Bunter, 1950s UK TV show, Billy Bunter. He's got the look, he's got the accent. It is Billy Bunter, who started off as a comic book, in a kid's comic.
Right.
And then became a TV show, a Gerald Theron Campion.
Check this out. It's him. Look, Billy Bunter. Look he's definitely playing the character. Oh my gosh. That's who the identity is trying to be. Billy Bunter. Mr. Bean. Yeah. Billy Bunter. All right, let's go back. It's him. It's Billy
Very,
Bunter.
very famous, iconic, archetypal idea of the rotund schoolboy who loves to eat and will himself get conned around food. Mainly it's him getting being greedy. So yeah,
That's who it looks like.
Yeah,
Oh my
while
God.
Googling him.
That's hilarious.
If you play the videos,
I wasn't asleep, you know, sir. I was just sitting here with my eyes closed, trying to concentrate.
so that's what he's playing. Again, it's so obtuse. A bit like the John Lennon costume that he kind of comes in at one point. It's so obtuse, a bit like the flat cap, a bit like the Lord in the chair. It's so obtuse that anybody British goes, hang on, what do you think? What are you doing there? Now, on some body language, single shoulder shrugs from Miranda on how they met. So she's not sure about this. She says, kinda, we just, I was not. It's interesting that the documentary makers here, or the news makers here, when she says we met at a British art museum, they show an image of the BBC. So they've even shown, I don't think they know they're doing this, but they've just taken any old image, go, that'll do for an art museum. It isn't. There's no art museum there at all. That's the frontage of the BBC, just north of Oxford Street. So some falsehood there, though I don't think it's purposeful. The career resume that she gives, that's very sketchy. She says she was an executive and tosses her hair at that point. So she wants to show at that point, look how good my hair is. So you can see, well, if she has good quality hair, then the resume must be good quality as well. Again, a bit of a con going on here. She wants us to recognize.
Yes, you nailed it. Right here. And the dude that played him, Dan Schneider, has his own problems in Hollywood. You can read about his
her status, which most likely makes me think that's what she's most worried about, potentially. Maybe she has something like him of a narcissistic complex going on. Maybe they both feed off each other around that. Maybe she saw that this
Dan Schneider has been implicated in a lot of allegations throughout Hollywood and Nickelodeon. He immersed himself in that field, and there's a lot of allegations of wrongdoing with Dan Schneider. There's many videos across YouTube. You can look it up. Dan Schneider, Nickelodeon. Pretty crazy stuff. Okay, let's
Sir Bernard Chumley character that he played, this defunct lord. Other people would fall for that as well and think, what a good husband she's got. Quite aristocratic, quite a good kind of Oxford chap. She seems to have, for a girl from from the West Coast, who talks like this, quite a good catch for her to get the Oxford chap. Interesting. Scott, what you got on this one?
All right, you may be familiar with this, Mark. Lunatics, the show with Chris Lilly. Do you know what that is?
Yeah.
Okay. He does, and if you get a chance, it's on Netflix, watch that. It's hilarious. It's one of my favorite things to watch. It's called Lunatics. And this guy, Chris Lilly, does these, plays different characters throughout all the episodes. And there's one character he does of a girl who has gigantism. I guess that's how you say it correctly, gigantism. And his wife reminds me of that girl, since we're pointing out people they look like, who they remind us of. That's who she looks like. Because when I first saw that, I remember thinking, looks like Chris Lilly. So if you get a chance, look that up, because that's who she looks like. Let's talk about elusiveness. The con is great at covering their tracks. When they've done something and they get away, man, they're tough to find. And if they've done something and they think you're onto what they did, they can hide what they've done. And they plan ahead, no matter what happens. They think to them, not every time, but quite often they'll think, how can I make sure nobody finds out about this? What can I do to guard from this? So quite often they'll maintain a low profile by using fake names and use different bank accounts, and they'll you create fake identities, and they'll do all this horrible stuff and then go be somebody else somewhere else. It's about the guy I'm telling you about here. Now he's in Canada, the guy I was telling you about earlier, the psychopath and con. He's in Canada pretending he's a fisherman. And so he deals with fish and has supposedly been doing that for, 30 years. And he hasn't been doing that, but as long as he's been in Canada. So, and I wish I could add more body language stuff to this, but again, like I said before, it's just, I can't get into it at all. Not even a little bit. Greg, what do you got?
Oh, this one is just bleeding body language. I'm with you, Mark. I wondered, you trump my Mr. Potato Head, but I can't match that. But look, when a person has disability or a person's injured, they still have dignity about the way they're perceived. Most of us don't want to be dragged around. If tomorrow you lost your legs, you would probably say, hey, can you turn that camera off until I get seated? Most people would have some decorum, some dignity, unless they're using it. And this guy's using something, whatever there is. We'll just leave it at that. But he is making a show of whatever's going on with him, and he's going on about his business. He's got a brand new thing. There's a couple of things he's doing that he's never done in this baseline. Big head shakes. No. Then he uses the words, I want to be, not I am being truthful, honest. He says, I want to be as honest as I possibly can. Well, why don't you? That would be what I would ask him when he said this. But he doesn't. And then there's two places in here, Mark. She's doing the closed eye talking with one shoulder. It's interesting to me, that first one. The second one's where they met, and she does the one shoulder, quite a bit of moving. When this guy starts telling the interviewer where he's lived, he does really hard eye contact, what we call a romancer in the true crime workshop. And when people are telling lies of commission is when they're most likely to eye lock with you, because the rest of them are pretty easy to hide. But when I lie about where I was born, what I did for a living, I better damn well pay close attention to you and make good eye contact and make sure you're believing me. And lies of commission are my favorite, because I go, hold on a second. You did what? You were PR for who? Okay, I know a bunch of people in business. Let's pull up our LinkedIn accounts to see who we know. Guess what? That guy's not going to have any of that stuff. It's going to kind of fall apart. Yep. Again, he uses some nebulous words. He doesn't say, I did this. He had, what did he say? I had a fair amount of success. What does that mean? Let's just ask. What does that mean? And Mark, I think you're dead on about her. There's something else going on here. And by the way, when he says, I had a good run as a public relations consultant, his eyes are closed the whole time. He hasn't done a whole lot of that yet. When she talks, she says, previously, I was ... No, I don't. An executive, and I have worked in account management. Well, if you got a resume that says I'm vice president of sales, vice president of operations, I'm an executive, you say that. You don't say I was an executive and I did some account management. There's just so much garbage here that you can't look at it. And Scott, I get why you don't want to do the body language. There's just so much garbage here. This is like, these guys are broadcasting everything we've been teaching for 3 years on this show. Chase, what do you got?
So there's two types of eye closure when somebody's talking. And this video is the perfect way to show you both of them in one clip. In the first instance, you'll see her close her eyes, but her shoulders go wild, almost like the woman we profiled from the Houston, Texas case. Don't know what her name was, don't care. Yeah. This massive spike in uncertainty and discomfort is happening here. But when her eyes close, her face remains neutral. So you're also going to see her head fall downward. Her chin comes down. And this eye closure is what you're going to see when somebody is emotionally blocking themselves off from a topic that's not comfortable, or they're reluctant to think about something that's coming up. So this is big. Pay attention to when this eye closure happens. Second time you'll see eye closure is the other type, where a person is doing it to express false humility while maybe patting themselves on the back while saying something that they might be proud of or they think is impressive. And you'll see this specifically right when she's telling you she was an executive. And the difference in these two is the postural adjustment to increased confidence, as she says, the executive part, animation of the face, the eyebrows going up. That's how to spot the difference between these two eye closure behaviors. And finally, Nicholas had died. We were on our honeymoon. That's the ending of a book where one personality dies and then we go off. This other person's gone now. and now we're going on the honeymoon. This is very telling in a lot of ways. It's like she's saying the old him was gone, and now they started a new life together.
One of those tape replays.
For us, too.
Oh.
After yet another press conference, Arthur, along with his wife Miranda, spoke to us remotely.
I know you have a lot to say, which is great.
I want to be as honest and truthful as possible.
It's very important that our story is heard.
I was adopted.
Arthur told us he began life as an orphan in Ireland.
I grew up all over Dublin, Belfast.
He said he later moved to London and through grit and determination worked his way up the corporate ladder in communications.
I had a very good run as a public relations consultant.
He and Miranda said they met at a London art museum in 2011.
We just struck up a conversation, exchanged kind of contact detail, but I was not,
With good friends at the time.
They said they were friends at first. She was in a relationship and busy with her career.
So previously I was, an executive, and I've worked in account management.
But several years later, they said they met up again. Romance blossomed.
We fell in love. We love each other very much, deeply in love.
And in February of 2020, the same month that Nicholas Alaverdian supposedly died, Arthur and Miranda got married.
Nicholas, Rossi, or Alaverdian, or whatever, had died. We were on our honeymoon.
She says Arthur was in a medically induced coma and put on a ventilator. After 3 months, though, he woke up.
So Arthur makes it through this.
One thing, though, he is confirmed to have gotten COVID. So we do know that.
But your whole world has been turned upside down.
I was with him in his room, and 2 police constables came into the room, and I looked up and I thought they had walked into the wrong room.
What'd they tell you?
They said that it would be sensible for me to actually leave the room because of what was going to be said. And Arthur said, no, my wife knows everything. There's no secrets between us.
Secrets.
Can you also tell us what happened in that room and why they told you they were there?
I just, remember words of 2008, Utah, rape, America, and it all didn't make sense.
She heard police calling Arthur Nicholas Rossi. They said that international law enforcement agencies were trying to bring him back to the United States.
Oh, that's him. Nicholas Rossi, but people choose to believe what they want.
Were you read your rights? Were you handcuffed?
I was told I was under arrest for rape in Utah, and that's all I was told.
Once he left the hospital, he faced a judge in an extradition hearing where he proclaimed he was not Nicholas Rossi. So now the judge would have to rule first on his identity before deciding if he should be extradited.
Are you losing confidence, sir?
Months went by with hearing after hearing, but no ruling from the judge.
Nicholas, you've completely failed to pull the wool over their eyes.
Sir, how can you possibly claim not to be Nicholas Rossi now?
Are you Arthur Knight or Nicholas Rossi?
He made front page news. A lot.
We were once a normal family, but thanks to the media, our lives have been interrupted. And we'd like privacy, and I would like to go back to being a normal husband.
Right, I'll go first on this one. When's the last time you saw somebody who was in a coma wearing glasses? What do you need glasses for? I wear glasses. I've never been in a coma, but I don't think I'm going to need them if I'm in a coma. Think about that.
Interesting.
You've got to be kidding me. And then neither one of them said, you know what? We can't show that picture. Why? Because I'm wearing my glasses. Oh, yeah. And another thing that bothered me about this guy, as they're pushing him through that crowd in one of those wheelchairs, he's doing the same thing a stroke victim would be doing. His hand is curled up and he's doing the classic, what you see when someone's had a stroke and they're in a wheelchair, because I think in his case it was the right side. I think it was the right hand is curled up and his hand is brought into a little ball like this. When that really gets on my last nerve, having dealt with stroke patients before, because he's a con and all that, but for me personally, that really gets on my last nerve seeing things like that, because he's faking. He's so stupid. He doesn't understand he's faking a stroke. I just don't. I can't get down with this guy, man. I think this is a bit. It has to be a bit, you guys. I'm telling you. Somehow, Greg, what do you got?
Okay, I'm not even going to cover a whole lot of body language since you brought up the outlandish stuff he's doing. I'm just going to point out one piece of body language. Back to that choppy talk and smooth breaths. The most outlandish claim he made was he has tattoos on his upper arms because somebody in the hospital tattooed him while he was in a coma. Yeah, we don't said. Yeah. He actually says in the interview, well, the only reason I have tattoos on my upper arms is because somebody tattooed me while I was in a coma.
Oh my God.
Maybe that's why they put the glasses on so he could check it.
Wow.
I'm done with him. Mark, go ahead.
Yeah, I mean, the cultural references come thick and fast here. I don't know whether anybody, probably many of you do, follow Ricky Gervais on Twitter. But that coma, I mean, there's no fun in actually having COVID and being in a coma. Nothing funny about that at all. Like you all, I'm going, what's he wearing his glasses for? That is a classic Ricky Gervais in the bath picture. For anybody who follows Ricky Gervais in the bath, that's the picture there. Who else have we got there? We've got this kind of Dick Spanner detective being wheeled in there, the Trilby hat. He's in there to right the wrongs, to get the evidence for people. Coming out again, you got Lennon or Ringo coming out, doing the peace sign. There's another image of him, and he seems to be doing the peace sign down, and it's like the Pope. He's got his own Pope-mobile, and he's doing this kind of low-key benediction as he gets trolleyed around. I mean, it's all over the place. But here's where it really falls up or falls down or goes in an odd direction for me, is he tries out his Dublin accent throughout this. He tries out his Irish accent. You can spot it in. He says, "That's all I was told," but he says, "That's all I was told." So he's trying to get this. He's testing out. Could he play the Irish at this point? Now, of course, if he was born in Dublin, but then he grew up and had a terrible childhood in Northern Ireland, everybody would know Southern Ireland isn't Northern Ireland, and the Irish accent is very, very different in Northern Ireland. Nothing like the Dublin accent. So I don't know where he had this terrible childhood in Northern Ireland, but didn't pick up the Northern Irish accent instead of this Dublin accent, which he's testing out at this point. It is, well, as we've seen with others of his type, it's a gathering of all kinds of ideas. It's a collage of a personality, because there is no real, or there's no personality or background that he wants to display, that he's proud of, that he wants to go, here's who I am. So he's had to put this thing together, this brand together. And as you well know, brands are made up of all, like a bird makes a nest, of all the little bits of string and paper and wool and wood that they can pick up in all kinds of places to create this nest, often just for a year, and then it falls apart because it's not made of anything particularly solid. That's what he's done. He's grabbed all these little pieces and he's put them together into a nest just for the next few years until he moves on to the next place. Chase, what do you got on this one?
Yeah, he might even go as far to say he's doubling down on the accent.
Oh, very good, sir.
No.
Will you be here all week, Chase?
Okay.
Wow. You're driving home tonight. Don't forget your cars, ladies and gentlemen.
Two things that I will cover here. When somebody is struggling for oxygen, they don't take these rapid breaths like this. This is acting. A person struggling with oxygen supply, I've seen many, will take air as they need it. They will try to take in deep breaths. Here's why. And this will happen no matter how emotional they are.
Great episode.
This is because your brainstem is more powerful than your limbic system. The lower it is in the brain, the more control it has over everything above it. And this overrides all the higher parts of your brain, everything you think might be important, like pretending to struggle for air. This is why you cannot hold your breath until you die. The brainstem will take over the entire show and make you breathe. So the brainstem, if we are struggling to breathe, we've moved from facing social consequences down to the bottom of Maslow's pyramid of I might die. That takes control and that takes charge. And we're not seeing that here. So it looks like big old faker. But maybe not. Let's see in the next video.
Yeah.
When I was a kid, I told my dad I was going to hold my breath till I died, and he was a doctor. I said, "Oh, well, sit over here and do that. I want to watch this. I got to see this." He said, "Sit down over there. I got to see this." Obviously I couldn't do it, so I started the fake thing where but you're breathing through your nose and all that. And he was like, "This is great." And he would just kept looking at me, "This is great. I've never seen this." And from a scientific, point of view, and he explained everything to me as I was sitting there.
One of those tape replays.
She says Arthur was in a medically induced coma and put on a ventilator. After 3 months, though, he woke up.
So Arthur makes it through this, but your whole world has been turned upside down.
I was with him in his room, and 2 police constables came into the room, and I looked up and I thought they had walked into the wrong room.
What'd they tell you?
They said that it would be sensible for me to actually leave the room because of what was going to be said. And Arthur said, "No, my wife knows everything. There's no secrets between us."
Secrets.
Can you also tell us what happened in that room and why they told you they were there?
I just, remember words of 2008, Utah, rape, America, and it all didn't make sense.
She heard police calling Arthur Nicholas Rossi. They said that international law enforcement agencies were trying to bring him back to the United States.
I made it clear I'm not Nicholas Rossi, but people choose to believe what they want.
Were you read your rights? Were you handcuffed?
I was told I was under arrest for rape in Utah, and that's all I was told.
Once he left the hospital, he faced a judge in an extradition hearing where he proclaimed he was not Nicholas Rossi. So now the judge would have to rule first on his identity before deciding if he should be extradited.
Are you losing confidence, sir?
Months went by with hearing after hearing, but no ruling from the judge.
Nicholas, you've completely failed to pull the wool over their eyes.
Sir, how can you possibly claim not to be Nicholas Rossi now?
Are you Arthur Knight or Nicholas Rossi?
He made front page news. A lot.
We were once a normal family, but thanks to the media, our lives have been interrupted. And we'd like privacy, and I would like to go back to being a normal husband. But I can't, because I can't breathe. I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly. Exactly.
All right, we're back now. So essentially what happens is probably I didn't pause long enough while we were watching that segment. So it probably picked up the Dateline episode and the AI nailed it. I haven't been demonetized on the video. So that's essentially what happens it'll suspend the stream because they think that you're just streaming the episode and you're not doing anything. That's why I always say this. A lot of people come in and they complain when we play videos and we pause and we commentate over them. I have to do that for fair use. So probably what happened was there was a stretch of time. Oh, my voice just cracked. A stretch of time in that video that I didn't pause and say anything. They think that YouTube's AI is picking up and saying, you've stolen the stream. You're just streaming it to your audience. We need to shut it down. So that's what essentially happens. They'll cut the video. But once the AI detects that you are not streaming that content and it has stopped, they will bring it back. So that's why we're back live right now. I'm going to do this. I'm going to speed up past this part here, and we'll just go to the end of the behavior panel and get their closing statement, and that will end the stream. So like I said, what will happen is the AI picks it up. They said, oh, you're being bad. You're just straight streaming it and you're not doing anything. And that's why there was a little bit of a suspension. So again, I'm fully still monetized on this stream. And that's why we pause on videos when we are watching them, and we will commentate. And I know people complain about that, but we have to for fair use. And again, if you're just coming in on the stream, it was nice enough. I actually reached out to the behavior panel. I got an email back from Scott, and Scott up here on the panel was very nice to allow me to use this. So they won't ping me on this. And they said they're looking forward to actually watching and seeing my reaction. So, okay, let's finish up the video here at the end.
They force me to have to show you, how I can't do this. He does it actually very, very well. And then he has to suggest that he's losing his balance by throwing his arms like right high up in the air, which is not what your instinct will do. Chase, you were talking there about that reptilian brain, that brain stem. When the brain stem thinks that you are falling over, the last place it's going to put your hands is up above your head, because that's only going to unbalance you more. It's going to cause you to put your weight, your center of gravity, lower. So the hands would come out like this or go down like this. The center of gravity would drop. The center of gravity wouldn't go up in the air. He's doing the image there of, whoa, a fairground ride, a roller coaster. Look at the roller coaster that I'm on. Completely wrong for that moment. He's an absolute malingerer in this situation. I would stake much on. Greg, what do you think?
Yeah, my original thought on this one was I was just going to get up and walk out. This is the most ridiculous thing I've ever seen in my life. And when people do this, like you said, he kind of juts up. You know why I think he throws his arms up? I think it's a regulator. I think it's, hey, come get me. And if his arms are down, she can't reach around him and protect him and set him back down. But if his arms are sticking up, she can. That's the reason he throws his arms up at last minute. Watch her. She's almost looking for something to happen. Pay attention to her body language. She looks apprehensive, like something's about to happen. And then she's kind of got the pseudo, no, please don't. Look, if you were somebody you loved, were sitting next to you, and you knew they were disabled and they might do something to try to prove something that would cause them to be injured, you would try your best to suppress it. You wouldn't sit there and wait for them to go, oh, come get me. This is more of the same. Chase, what do you got?
Yeah, Mark, got the same as I did. Just the neuroscience of it makes that false. So here's what I'll cover. I really want to know how the process of her finding out who he was went. I'm fascinated. I have to figure this out.
Did she do any research? What the hell, man? Look at this guy.
That has to be an incredible psychological process that Miranda went through. I think there were some incredible factors at play here. The first one, I think, is cognitive dissonance. Just torn between this man she thought she married and then the criminal that she finds out he is, and her mind seeks what I would probably call an impossible harmony between those. Then there's rationalization, constructing these justifications, transforming his crimes into maybe a narrative. Confirmation bias probably came in. I think she selectively maybe focuses on his good moments. That's another big thing. And then turns a blind eye to red flags. And then Stockholm syndrome is a possibility. Not a captive, but emotionally bound. She might align with a distorted reality, like her survival might depend on it, since she's being roped into this now.
I'd love them to
Then there's social
everybody
identity
involved in the
theory
case.
in psychology.
And Karen
This
Reed.
is maybe just discovering his life, shakes her identity, maybe helps
I
him,
think it'd be amazing. Just break down everybody's body language.
Maybe a way to reaffirm her role and self-worth by helping him or looking like she's helping him. But number one, what I think is really, really keeping everything in there is the sunk cost fallacy. This is the weight of her emotional investment, keeping her tethered and making the idea of cutting losses kind of unbearable. And that's all I got. Scott?
All right. I think you're giving her way too much credit, man. I think you're going way too deep. I think she knew it before they got married because she's known him a long time.
But she hadn't found out while they were dating, though.
2 years, 4 years, 5 years, 9 years.
Yeah, she said if they'd known each other for 3 years and got married after 1 year, she's going to know. She's going to know. So what would motivate her is what motivates all con victims: greed. So there's something in there for us, from my point of view.
If you haven't already, please smash the like button down below. I'm at 96 likes. I'd love to get to 100. If you can do that for me, I really would appreciate it. We got about another less than 5 minutes on this video. Then I'm going to play the when he loses the oxygen tank. And I have some good videos queued up for tomorrow when Brian comes on, and we can go through them and just get his reaction on it too. All right, here we go. We'll just finish this up.
I would say there's something in there she's after or sees coming from this, because she can't get in trouble, I don't think, because all she's got to do is say, I swear to you, I thought this was real. I think that's what's keeping her roped in. There's something there about greed. You wait and see, because all cons, even in this case, he's conned her at the top. But I agree with you. Now she feels like she's invested in it. She's there. She's been a part of it. And now she's not going to get away because she's still after that, whatever it is. Maybe he's told her he's a multimillionaire and he's got all this money in America or something. And she thinks she's going to get it, or get it from his father when he dies, or his grandfather or something. Something's in it for greed for her. That's the way I'm seeing it from my point of view. Something's up there with her,
maybe he lied
because
to her and
she
said, "I have a
knows
lot of
what's
money
going
back."
on.
I don't think she did initially, though.
Maybe the first date. I don't know. I can't. Yeah. And people go, y'all don't ever disagree. Here we are.
I think somewhere in the middle is probably true, if we're going to talk about that. Look, I think projection is the most blinding thing on earth. And if you meet somebody and you think they are X and you're willing to put up with enough, you can make sure that they are who you want them to be. You just blind yourself to a point. Then you got the sunk cost problem. That's what my opinion.
One of those tape replays.
But I can't, because I can't breathe. I can't walk. People say that's an act. Let me try to stand up. Let me try to stand up. Exactly. So let's
when Arthur fell back into his chair, it was hard not to wonder, was it all an act?
This is what people do to me. They call me a liar. They say this oxygen is a prop.
It's the same guy.
Just one more thing.
All right. Up to this point, Mark, how's it looking to you? What do you think we've seen?
Listen, I think there are few people in the world who can get away with actually being a caricature. And he isn't one of them. He can't get away with being that level of caricature. He's chosen a whole bunch of different British icons, which he's playing kind of one after the other to see how they work. It doesn't work at all. I think anybody, British or not, can completely see through the acts that he's putting on there. Chase, what do you think?
Yeah. This was just so far is fascinating, hilarious, sad, and bizarre. And there's so much deception here, but we're seeing deception from somebody who is deceptive, not just with lies and concealment, but whose identity, vernacular, name, backstory, nationality are all deceptive. And it's like a deception onion, or maybe we could call it a deception lasagna, where all these layers of falsification just making this weird composite that we just can't look away from. And I don't think he's delusional. When people are delusional, they won't hide things. So one of the forensic tests to see if someone's faking insanity or faking stuff is to see whether or not they hid other things and they're still hiding things. So people with genuine illness, like these severe delusions, don't conceal what they think is real. Greg?
Yeah, when we talk about, I call people onions all the time. I agree with you, or pearls. And the interesting piece, Mark, you used an analogy about a bird's nest being a temporary thing. We are just like a bird's nest, but we're a permanent set of knots that stay here forever. And we're complex. The problem with this guy is if he were lying about a thing, he might get away with it. But he's lying about everything. And the weirdest part is, did anybody yet figure out why he can't walk? I can't breathe well enough to walk far. Okay, I got that. Why can't he stand up? Nobody ever gave a reason for that. But he's got wheelchairs and all this kind of stuff. This guy's got so many layers of stuff that he can't even keep it straight. I think Abraham Lincoln famously said, no man has a good enough memory to be a good liar. Scott, what do you got?
All right, I'm going to be quick to the point. I think it's fully. All right, fellas, I think this is another good one, and we'll see you next time.
All right. Excellent stuff, behavior panel. I want to thank Scott once again for allowing me to do that episode here and give you kind of a little pre-warm up tomorrow when I have Brian Coogan on. And I think tomorrow's going to be great and really get a backstory on this guy and get kind of more into the mind of how he was and what he was in Providence, Rhode Island. All right, let's do this to finish it up really quick. Everybody wanted to see the oxygen tank video. We'll play this out and then we'll wrap this one up. I appreciate everybody being here. Please make sure to smash the like button there. Oh, great. We're at 104 likes. Excellent. Thank you so much. I appreciate that. Let's do it. Oh, I love it. Look how big the tank is. It's so over the top. The tank is so over the top. Oh my God. This is so cringy. And the scooter goes wicked fast. He says the peace sign, but because he can't get up. I thought he needed oxygen 24/7. Look at how over the top the oxygen bottle is. Oh my God. It's like a bad movie. It's like a bad movie, right? I mean, you can't make this up.
Your oxygen mask is going into your mask.
I am trying to function without an abuser. Would all of you like to see a video of this woman, Jane McSorley, assaulting and abusing me in my own home in front of Craig Johnson? I need oxygen. I can't breathe. No, I'm not on any oxygen.
He says, I need oxygen. I can't breathe.
Can you move your arm, please, so I can get to it?
This woman assaulted me in my own home. I have a video.
She's just laughing at him.
For your evidence. You did, and you insinuated that I was unfaithful to my wife with you. You insinuated that I was unfaithful to my wife with you. Come on, let's get that I was unfaithful to my wife with you, and it's all on video and audio recording. It's all on video and audio recorded.
What's on the courtroom?
The text messages with my wife and your help. There is
It's so over the top. It's so bizarre.
It's on the courtroom for you. Mr. Rossi.
Look how fast the car goes. Look how fast the wheelchair goes. It's like. Unreal. You can't make this up. I can't wait to have Brian look at this tomorrow and just be like, what the hell? This is so bizarre. Now that's the courthouse. He doesn't want to go in. This is so bizarre. And there he goes. That's it. Oh man, it's too bizarre. Too bizarre. Oh God. All right. Well, that's going to wrap that one up. Tomorrow, you're not going to want to miss it if you've enjoyed today's stream. I know it was a long one, but well worth it. Tomorrow, I will have Brian Coogan on, a former friend of Nicholas Rossi, aka Arthur Knight. I'll drop the link to that there if you want to go over and set your reminder. That'll be at 8 p.m. Tomorrow night. If not, if you are, just stay here. It will take you over to there, and then you can set your reminder. So thank you all for watching. I appreciate it. Very long stream. I'm going to get some rest. I appreciate it. And I will talk to everybody tomorrow. I hope everybody will make that stream. I think it will be well worth it. Okay, everybody take care. Have a good night. Bye.
LTL, true crime, we go deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden marks. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL, true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL, true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL, true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden march. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting in the minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL, true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL, true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. LTL, true crime, we go deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden marks. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL, true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL, true crime, unveiling dark realities every time. Yeah, LTL, true crime, we going deep in the dark. Peeling back the layers, expose the hidden mark. From the streets to the alleys where the secrets lie. Getting into minds of the wicked, no alibi. LTL, true crime, unraveling the web of evil. No stone left unturned, we dive into the prime. Yeah, we digging up the dirt, bringing justice to the crime. LTL, true crime, unveiling dark realities every time.